There's the live stream. Hello, everyone. Let's see if I can get this chat bounced out. I still need to put my headphones in. Let's pop out the chat. That looks good. Let's move this to the right. Move this to the left. All right. Hi, everybody. Hello, chat room. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good to have you here. We've got all Network Plus today. Today is the Network Plus study group, the N10-007 Network Plus study group. And look at all these wires. We got to get this all. You can't see it, but it's just there we go. Just a mess. How's everybody doing? Where's the light? It's not as bright here as it should be, is it? Let's turn the lights on. That's better. What a difference. All right. We are working it. Alabama's checking in. Hello, Alabama. Michigan is here. We got a few folks checking in. We've got about 8 minutes before we get started with the N10-007 study group. More Michigan. Lots of Michigan. South Africa's here. Philly is in the house. Hello, CA, which I'm not sure. Is that Canada? Is that California? Is that... Is it both? Can't be both, can it? Is it calligraphy? Is it calliope? Is it Lake Worth? Good to see the Floridians checking in. More Florida checking in. Very nice. Nigeria is here. Ireland. West St. Paul, Minnesota. Minnesota. There's Cali. Okay, it's Cali. CA's Cali. California. Hello, Washington and Dublin. More Florida. I wouldn't hold it against you. That's where I am. I'm in Florida. It's all good. How much snow did you have to deal with last year? That's right. Hello, upstate New York, Los Angeles, and Maryland, my Maryland. And there's Jacksonville. Lots more Florida checking in. Hello, Columbus, St. Petersburg, Russia, St. Vincent. We've got quite a bit of folks checking in both domestic and internationally. We sure appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. See, a lot of South Florida checking in. There's North Broward County. That's a callback, isn't it? Got a lot going on there. That's a very specific callback, I guess. All right. We've got... recordings. Recording here, recording there, underneath. We're in pretty good shape there. It's very bright. What is it's the reflection off of here? I don't usually have it twisted at that angle, do I? Well, that's how it's going to be. That's how that's going to be. You know what it is? It's warm. Let's bring up the Nest and make it a little cooler inside of this place. No, I don't want to use a different login. Thanks for asking. We'll put it right about there. See how that goes. I think we're in pretty good shape here. I had cameras look good here. You can even see over my shoulder here. The 4 cameras are the sort of the middle row there. The first small row are the cameras. And then I've got others here. Actually, the entire bottom 8. You see there's 2 blank spots on camera 7 and camera 8 are blank because I don't have any inputs going into there. These are used for the auxiliary display and the streamer config. That's what you see is what's on this, duplicates what's on that screen right there. Main 4 cameras are the ones in the middle, and then the previews on the upper left, programs on the upper right. So that works. I'm very aware of Lake Worth. I lived in South Florida for 10 years. I lived in Miami Lakes and Miramar and Pembroke Pines. So I lived a little bit in, at the time, Dade County and Broward County, and worked in both. Worked in both of those. I need to put on this view of the stream health. The stream health. All right. We've got all Q&A coming at you. I don't remember what I put in the Q&A, but that's not unusual. Let's see how we're looking there. We're looking pretty good on the fake green screen, the green screen that is not a green screen. Any future courses in the works? Well, there's always something in the works. And there are updates and other courses that, yes, they're on a list. I have a pretty big list. So there you go. I lived in Hialeah for a while. How about that? So that's I was all over the place down there. That's one of those situations. I like Miami Lakes. I like Main Street. I like just hanging out at the bakery. Getting a cafe con leche and just hanging out. A cafe con leche. Not really good with my accent, but it worked. Got me through it. That's the important part. We've got, yeah, it's very, that's just how it works for me. That's what it sounds like. I do try a little bit of an accent, but it just doesn't work very well. But it's enough to order good food. My main driving need to speak a different language revolves around food. So that's it. The app we use for the questions is called the Socrative Student app. The Socrative Student app is what you want. Or go to professormesser.com/QA. I'll talk all about that in a moment. No, not ordering at McDonald's. Ordering Cuban food, which is the most important part. Okay, we've got quite a bit to go through. I've got a bunch of questions for you. We're going to do Alt Network Plus. Yeah, I got enough Spanish to get me through when I was living down there, which isn't very much, quite honestly. Mrs. Professor Messer is, she is a nurse, so she had to know more than I did. But, you know, she knows enough that she can talk about what, parts of your body hurt, if your arm is okay. What you want is the Socrative Student app. There we go. Yeah, it doesn't sound right when I say it. I'll get it straight here in a moment. Nightstand. That's what I'm looking for. We got a minute or so before we get started, and I'll talk about how you connect and do the Socrative and all of those things. No, she's not doing nursing courses. She is now retired from nursing. So she is now the vice president of Messer Studios. That's what she does. But she worked in the cardiac care at what was at the time Miami Heart Institute, and then worked for some heart surgeons. And then we started this craziness, and I needed a vice president. So I was smart enough to marry someone smarter than me. So she's really the vice president who runs everything, is what she is. I really should be the vice president. She should be the CEO. Any idea when the new Network Plus is coming out? In fact, there is an idea, and I'll talk about it in just about in the next 5 minutes. You'll hear about what the next update will be. Okay, let's do a last check. Cameras look good. Everything seems to be okay. Let's start up Keynote. That's the only thing I haven't checked yet. Did I get a green light? The room name is Professor Messer. I'll put it right here. All one word. There you go. And I think we are ready. Look at that. It all works. Time for a study group, everybody. Is this the right image? I believe it is. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2021 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. This is an N10-007 Network Plus Study Group, which is an important thing to differentiate, because there is a little bit of a change going on soon. So we will be working with those changes as we go through here. I'll explain more of that in just a moment. But thank you for being here. We do one of these study groups once a month. And in this first hour, I'm going to ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. In the second hour, I'm going to open up the phone lines, take questions from the chat room. So we will just hang out and do Network Plus for this first hour. The second hour, who knows what it turns out to be. We always have something interesting going on. If you are here watching this live, we would love to have you participate with us. You can answer the questions online by visiting this website, professormesser.com/QA. So pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. If you'd like, you can also download an app for this, because why wouldn't you? Of course, we need an app for this. It's called the Socrative Student App. That's the name of the app. And it will ask you for a room name. There's the room name right there. Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER will get you there. In fact, I don't even have the quiz up. I'm not even sure what quiz is up right now. So we need to stop whatever activity I've got. Probably the activity from the last study group is there. So it would be good if I started you on the Network Plus study group content, which is now on your screen. If you're able to get in and everything looks the way it should be looking, then you will see a question that asks something that's different than what I have on my screen. So that's always good. Did I manage to put the wrong thing up there? I think I did. Today is the 11th, isn't it? I don't even think this is the right one. This is really odd. We're going to finish that out, so it's going to disappear on your screen. I'm going to look at this quiz really quick and see if I've got the right thing on my screen. I don't think I do. But that's okay. We'll figure it out. I've got all kinds of things to go through. There's more questions than we'll be able to step through than you might imagine. Let's see if I can break out of what I am doing with this. Let's get there. Let's see what my first question is, because I really need... Oh, yeah, I have completely the wrong thing on my screen, too. So something has gone horribly awry. Oh, I know it went awry. You have to choose the right presentation. It's all about the right presentation. There we go. See, I was right the whole time. No, I wasn't. I wasn't right at all. Now let's get a quiz going on your screen with this. I've got all kinds of little things. I'm going to put this up real quick so that we can work through whatever this thing is that I've got going on. That's the way you know it's a live stream, everybody, is that there's always something to do. Now, if this works properly, you will see a question finally on your screen that looks like this. The question is, which of the following attack types would describe the process of identifying a password based on a stored hash? See? We finally got there. And you have some options available on your screen as well. Those options are phishing, spoofing, logic bomb, denial of service, and brute force. Sounds like a Security Plus question. Sounds like it could be A+, but there's plenty of security on Network Plus. So that's where this one comes from as well. Those are the ones that you can work through. See if you happen to know this question and answer. Which of the following attack types would describe the process of identifying a password based on a stored hash? Would that be phishing, spoofing, logic bomb, denial of service, or brute force? If you think you know the answer, please do not answer in the chat room. You want to answer by going to professormesser.com/QA. It's that link that's right there on the screen. professormesser.com/QA will get you there. I've got plenty that we are going to come through, and we'll come back to that message or back to that question in just a moment. We'll figure out what the answer of this happens to be. In the meantime, thank you for being here, and thank you for being here even after I've had to juggle around all my presentations already. We sure appreciate that. One of the things that I find is very useful when I'm not doing a live stream is I have questions. I have weekly pop quiz questions for Network Plus and plenty of others in here as well. You can go to professormesser.com/YouTube to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This will be a pretty important thing in just a moment. I'll explain why. We also have questions every week that we post on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter, and questions that we provide on Instagram. Go to professormesser.com/Instagram. Same question as Twitter, but just a pretty picture to go along with it. Plenty of Q&A. We'll talk more about that in just a moment, too. So let's talk about Network Plus. So Network Plus right now is the N10-007. This is an exam that was released on March the 1st of 2018. And we know that they update these about every 3 years, but this has certainly been more than 3 years. Well, it turns out there was a little bit of a disruption with the world and what we were doing. So things got pushed a little bit as far as updating these exams here most lately. So that is one that can be really useful to know about. The important thing is that if you're planning to take this certification exam, that you know that it's a single exam, the N10-007. It's 90 minutes long. You get a maximum of 90 questions, and you need to score 720 on a scale from 100 to 900. Kind of an odd scale, odd scheme that they use to count up your grade. I think that's intentional. The exam itself is a combination of not just multiple choice questions, which you're probably familiar with, but also performance-based questions, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. Now, since this exam was released on March the 1st, 2018, we would expect a new update to be right around the corner, and in fact it is. The official release of a newer set of questions, a newer exam, is coming in September, next month. It'll be the N10-008. That is the official date so far. The official release date that has been announced is September of 2021. I don't think they put the actual final date on the CompTIA website yet, but I'm sure that's coming shortly. That means that the current N10-007 and the information that we'll go through today will be retiring probably in about 9 months. So we can see in the summer of 2022, this exam will finally go away, which means you've got plenty of time right now. If you're planning to take the Network Plus certification, you need to get Network Plus certified. Keep doing it. Take the N10-007 until the summer of 2022. There's not going to be as many things available for reference when the exam is first made available anyway. So the best thing you can do is to take that N10-007. Then as the N10-008 comes out and there's more books available, more videos, and more study content is available, then you will also be able to maybe switch over, or for people who are starting new, take that when it's new. But I don't recommend doing that. Don't wait to get certified. Take that certification right now. Put it in your pocket. That's the important part. And that's the thing you should keep in mind as we are going through these questions today. Of course, all of my N10-007 Network Plus videos are available for you to watch online for free. I get many questions throughout the month, people asking, where do I register to watch these? What do I need to sign up to be able to do this? No, there's none of that. There's no registration. There's no paywall. There's no place where you have to sign up or give me an email or something like that. It's all available online for free. You can stream every bit of it. Some folks would like an offline version of these videos. They would like audio files. They would like my Exam Hacks ebook. They would like preferential treatment during the QA portion of this study group. All of that is available by purchasing my Success Bundle. It's on my website, professormesser.com/netsuccess. You can read all about it. I just took everything I have for Network Plus. I put it in a single bundle so that you would have access to it as well. And for those that would like downloadable versions of the videos, that's what the Success Bundle is for. Plenty to go through there. If you're watching this video, there is a download, well, not a downloadable, but a replay of this available immediately afterwards. There's also an audio version of this, an audio podcast version available on professormesser.com/podcast. You're welcome to go there and get podcast versions of my A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups. If you also notice on YouTube, that replay that's available, about a day afterwards, suddenly a lot of timestamps appear in the video. And those timestamps are put on because my marketing manager, Lori, has to go through this entire video and mark when every single one of these questions, answers, and calls come in. But it's so fast when you're trying to find something. You can simply click the YouTube video description, and it will take you right to that section of the video. Lori's watching this now. Everybody say hi to Lori. She watches the chat go by on the chat replay. And we could not have that list and have that convenient timestamps available without her help. So we sure appreciate it. And others have told me that really helps as well. So very, very very important to have that, and something you should think about as you are planning your studies and watching these videos. So useful to be able to find what you're looking for. Don't forget that even when these study groups aren't live and are all over and we're not doing it online, you can, of course, while you're waiting for the next one to appear, join us 24/7. We have a chat available on Discord. You can go to professormesser.com/Discord and join our chat. There's also a link on my website at the upper right of the website, or you can simply go to professormesser.com/Discord. That will take you there as well. All those work perfectly well. And I'm usually in there as well, and you can send me direct messages through that and find me online. We've also, if you've also been on our website lately, you may have noticed that we have discounted CompTIA vouchers on our website. So if you're planning to take your exam, do not pay full price for your voucher. Don't go to the Pearson VUE site and pay their price. I can give you a discounted voucher on professormesser.com that you can take to their site and sign up for your exam and not have to pay so much money. This is available at professormesser.com/vouchers, and I have vouchers available for all of the CompTIA exams. Also, if you purchase the voucher from my site, then you get my free Exam Hacks ebook. This Exam Hacks ebook is a way that you can be able to find ways to increase the score by doing things during the study process, by doing things during the exam. I give you tips during the exam that might be able to get you some extra points. And if the exam doesn't go well, I even give you tips afterwards on how you can optimize this the next time through. All available for free if you buy the voucher on my site, professormesser.com/vouchers, and another great way to help support the site. Let's talk about this question. Which of the following attack types would describe the process of identifying a password based on a stored hash? Would that be phishing, spoofing, logic bomb, denial of service, or brute force? And you can see by those who have answered, 83% of you, pretty strong, say brute force. That is what you would be able to, you would have to go through that process to identify a password based on a stored hash. A three-way tie for second between phishing, spoofing, and logic bomb with about 5 or 6% apiece. And then denial of service, only 1% said denial of service. One of the problems when there is a password and a stored hash, not a problem, this is a good thing, is there's no way to reverse the process. There's no way to take a hash and somehow reverse the hash to be able to show you what the original information was, what the original plain text was. So when you do that, you may notice that there's no way to make that happen. You're going to have to go through every possible iteration to try to match up that hash. You effectively have to go through every combination of letters, numbers, special characters, or whatever it happens to be able to perform a brute force. Brute force is incredibly useful to make this happen. It is something you can either do online, so if you're working through those online, makes it very useful, or you can do it offline if you happen to have the hash file. We show you how to do that in the video. This is an extremely useful thing to know. This is why we always salt our hashes, so you can't use a rainbow table or some predefined set of hashes to be able to do this. Makes the process much more complicated when you're using that. But that's why brute force is the only thing you can do. And in some cases, brute force would take so long that you'd never be able to make that happen. So hopefully that's one that I think most of you realize, 84% of you, it was a question from last month. So that's one of those where if you do remember what we talked about last month, you got it right. If you're here new from last month and you got it right, then congratulations. Very useful to have that there. This is our question we always do at the beginning, our rewind question, to see if you happen to know or remember what we talked about next month. And most of you did really, really well with that one. The answer was indeed brute force. Congratulations. Now let's do some new questions. The very first new question of our month, I do a performance-based question. For those of you that have never taken a CompTIA exam before, CompTIA gives you a handful of questions at the beginning that are not multiple choice-based questions. They are performance-based questions. The question we just did was multiple choice. You had multiple choices to choose from, and you had about a 20% chance in this case of getting this right, even if you didn't know, if you took a guess, for example. So one of the things that CompTIA has done is they ask you questions that are not multiple choice. Makes it a little bit harder. So I have for you also multiple choice-based questions. Although you don't get fill-in-the-blank questions on the exam, I'm giving you a fill-in-the-blank question today. Whether that's good or bad, we'll find out in a moment. So let's look at our performance-based question of the month. I have a question that asks, associate an OSI layer to each description. And I have 5 descriptions here that I want you to put an OSI layer in. Now, remember, we're not answering in the chat room. We're not answering online. We're not giving any guesses in the chat room. But for those of you listening in on the podcast, let me give you all 5 of these descriptions, and you can tell me what you think the proper OSI layer is. So the first is users access email through a browser-based front end. What OSI layer is that? The second is an administrator modifies the subnet mask of a server. The third is a firewall blocks all traffic to TCP 3389. The fourth is an Ethernet link is converted from copper to fiber. And the last one is a switch forwards traffic to the destination address. So I tried to make these a little more challenging than some you might run into. What OSI layer is associated with that? I'll take the number. I don't have to have the name. If you know the name, that'd be pretty nifty. But it doesn't have to be, because I think most of us can figure out the name if we have the number. So if you think they're all numbers 1, you could just say 11111. If you think they're all layer 100, you would say 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. I think they're all layer 1 million. So you don't have to put the description of any of these in here. Just the number is fine. You can put all 5 of those numbers in, submit it. Remember what you put, though, because it doesn't tell you on Socrative what you inputted. So 2 minutes from now, when we go through the answers, you may not remember, wait, did I say 1 million to that one or 1,000 to that one? We'll have to figure it out. Hopefully nobody answered OSI layer 1 million. What would OSI layer 1 million be anyway? Probably something pretty interesting if we go through that. Let's see how we're going to do with this. This one's interesting because I left out some very important details that you would have to then add in with your own specific knowledge of what I'm talking about. This is a very common technique on the exam, by the way, where they don't go through and spoon feed you everything. They often have to give you information, but then in the description of what they're giving you, you have to be able to understand more about what they are referring to. And there were a couple in here just like that. So let's see how you did with the OSI layers for this one. We're just going to do the numbers in this one. But if you wanted to break this out and look at more OSI information, we certainly can later. So let's step through each one of these. Associate an OSI layer to each description. So in each one of these descriptions, let's look at the first, which is users access email through a browser-based front end. So if you have looked at maybe using Gmail, maybe you use Yahoo Mail, maybe you use Outlook.com, and you access all of your mail through a browser, then that is an application. And an application layer is layer 7 in the OSI model. So if you answered layer 7 through users access email through a browser-based front end, you got that one absolutely right. Let's do the next one, which is an administrator modifies the subnet mask of a server. Well, a subnet mask of a server is a network address. It's associated with the TCP IP address. We normally would configure a system with an IP address, a subnet mask, a default gateway, perhaps DNS settings, and other things as well. All of those are network level, so they would fit into the OSI layer 3. On the test, this could be a drag and drop. They could ask you a fill in the blank on the exam. They don't tend to. It does tend to be more drag and drop. My thought was you should already know that there are 7 layers. So there would be no need to put layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, 5, 6, and 7 at the bottom. So I made it just a little more difficult. This really isn't a fill in the blank from that perspective, though, is it? I think you should probably know there's 7 layers. If you didn't realize there's 7 layers of the OSI model, then maybe getting this one wrong was a good idea. We'll have to work through that one. Next on our list, a firewall blocks all traffic to TCP 3389. So now we're dealing with port numbers. And if you ever see anything relating to TCP or UDP, or you see any question relating to a specific port number, then we're talking about OSI layer 4. So whenever you are working at all with port numbers, that's an OSI Layer 4 issue. Whether it's IPv4 or IPv6, it's dealing with Layer 4 of the OSI model. Fifth on our list was an Ethernet link is converted. Fourth on our list, Ethernet link is converted from copper to fiber. That's something you may often do, especially if you have very long runs and you only have copper connections. Then you can convert the copper signal into one that would fit over a fiber connection and send it over a much longer distance. Very useful to do that. But you're not changing MAC addresses. You're not modifying the IP address, the subnet mask. You're not changing port numbers. In fact, you're really not changing much of anything with what the signal consists of. You're just changing the media that signal is operating on. And in that particular case, that means we are working at OSI Layer 1, physical layer, dealing with signal. Last on our list is a switch forwards traffic to the destination address. So this is one, if you're ever in a situation where you're trying to figure out anything with a switch. Notice I didn't say what kind of address. A switch forwards traffic to the destination address, you would have to know that switches make forwarding decisions based on MAC addresses, and the MAC address is an OSI Layer 2 data link layer address. So it would not be Layer 3 address because switches don't make forwarding decisions based on IP address. Switches make forwarding decisions based on MAC address. For those of you that would like to tell me that switches do operate at Layer 3 because there's such a thing as a Layer 3 switch, nope. The switching part is still at Layer 2. The routing part is at Layer 3. And although we incorrectly refer to it as a Layer 3 switch, in reality, there's no such thing as a Layer 3 switch. There's a Layer 3 router. There's a Layer 2 switch. And a Layer 3 switch just means it's a router and a switch in the same device. Multi-layer switch means it's a router and a switch in the same device, same physical device. And that's it. You'll often hear me say, calling it a Layer 3 switch or multi-layer switch is not really accurate. Although that's what we do. We do call them that in the industry. But when have we ever done anything that was 100% accurate? In our industry, nobody does. And that's a good example of one. So if you're listening in, the first one, users access email through a browser-based front end, that's Layer 7. An administrator modifies the subnet mask of a server, that's Layer 3. And if a firewall blocks all traffic to TCP 3389, that's Layer 4. An Ethernet link is converted from copper to fiber. Converted, there should be a T there. Layer 1. You can see I'm doing this early morning. I need more coffee. A switch forwards traffic to the destination address, Layer 2. So there you go. That is our 5 descriptions and the 5 OSI layers you should have plugged into this. Now, if this was the actual exam, one of the questions that comes up from this point is, well, I got 4 out of the 5. Do I get partial credit? I got one of them wrong. Is the whole thing wrong, or is part of it wrong? And CompTIA has said in the frequently asked questions on their website that they could at times give you partial credit. They could also at times not give you partial credit. And they don't tell you when that's happening. So I would think with a question like this on your exam that tends to lend itself towards partial credit, I would think you would get partial credit. But that's just me. They may not give it to you. So just something to keep in mind. If you're planning on taking the exam, don't dwell on whether the question is right and you're getting partial credit. You just don't know, and you're never going to know. So just do the best you can. That's all you can really hope for. Well done with today's performance-based question. There were a number of answers coming through. I was watching them as they were coming across on the screen. I think a lot of us were spot on with our OSI model. I get a lot of people sending me emails throughout the month telling me I'm wrong with how I'm associating things to the OSI model. And the thing is, it's a model. It's not a real thing. So we can't pick it up and look at it and see where things are running. So you might have a really good argument to say, no, things happening in a browser is really at Layer 6. It's really at Layer 5, and it might be at Layer 5. We tend to lump Layers 5, 6, and 7 together for these. But that's one to keep in mind, is that there's really not much of an argument when you stick to descriptions like this. You should be able to recognize and fit it into the OSI model and be able to do that for your exam. Well done. Let's do another one. I have now a Multiple choice-based question for you. This one asks, a network administrator is configuring SSO. Which of these technologies would be the best choice for this task? Would it be TACX+, Kerberos, Radius, local authentication, or LDAP? A network administrator is configuring SSO. Which of these technologies would be the best choice for this task? Would it be TACX+, Kerberos, Radius, local authentication, or LDAP? If you think you know the answer, use the link that's there on the screen, professormesser.com/QA. Please no hints in the chat room. Please no answers in the chat room. We'll figure out what's going on there. Of course, we'll talk about some of the things in that last question. A lot of people got the one where firewall was blocking TCP 3389. And it wasn't the firewall part that you should be focusing on. It's what was being evaluated to make the decision on whether data would be allowed or not allowed. Because there are firewalls that are definitely application aware, and they may allow or disallow traffic based on the application name. For instance, next generation firewalls can easily allow people to view things on Twitter, but perhaps prevent them from posting on Twitter. That's not a port number that's making that decision. It's the actual application itself, the actions of the application that are doing that. So that's why I always mention what is causing or what is being evaluated to create the disposition for that data. Are we allowing or blocking that based on someone posting to Twitter? Or are we doing that based on a TCP port number? Are we making the allow or disallow decision based on an IP address range? All of those are different for these. So hopefully this is one you can work through. As always, you can answer your question at professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answers. I see a number of you have already put the answers in there. So let's see how we did with this one. A network administrator is configuring SSO. Which of these technologies would be the best choice for this task? Would it be TACX+, Kerberos, Radius, local authentication, or LDAP? Let's show the results, and we can see that we're all over the place on this one. 39%, though, is the plurality of the answer. 40% have said Kerberos. We've got 18% that said LDAP. 21% said Radius, so almost a tie there between Radius and LDAP. 10% said TACX+. Not a lot of people loving TACX+. And then lastly, 11% said local authentication. Well, to be able to understand this question, we have to understand what's asking about. And it's asking about SSO. Single sign-on is what SSO stands for. We have nothing in Network Plus, if not a lot of acronyms. SSO is a common implementation on our enterprise networks because the users only need to know one set of credentials. They need to be able to use those credentials one time, and they're effectively signed into all of the resources they would ever need, usually throughout the day. This is where it becomes important to understand all of the underlying protocols and technologies that are used so that you can understand, is SSO supported by this authentication method or is it not supported? I only want to put my username and password in one time, and I never want to put that username and password in again. On the list of all of these, because the question does ask which of these technologies would be the best choice for this task, which means there's one that should be a clear differentiator when it comes to SSO. And if we're ever trying to implement SSO, you may not even realize it's implemented on your network. Then you're probably using something like Kerberos. This is very common, especially for Windows-based networks. Kerberos is a network authentication protocol similar to the other network authentication protocols that were answers. But this particular type of authentication protocol allows us to authenticate one time, and then we're trusted. We effectively get a little ticket, a cryptographic ticket, not a real ticket, but when you log in properly, your computer is handed a ticket. And the authentication server says, if you are ever need to go anywhere else and access any other resources, just show them this ticket I gave you, and that'll give you access. It's kind of like putting your name in at the club, right? So I'm on the list. I get access. Well, that's what that is. I'm showing my ticket to be able to get in and get that access. You don't need to re-authenticate to everything. It's so simple to turn it on and have it work. It's really built into Windows. We started using Kerberos in Windows with Windows 2000, and extremely useful because now everyone could log into the domain. That's what that is. You're logging into the Windows domain, and it uses Kerberos behind the scenes to provide the single sign-on functionality. So those of you that answered B, Kerberos, got it right. 41% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, all of the other technologies in here are authentication technologies. For example, 20% of you said Radius. Radius is a great technology to use, a common technology, probably one of the most common technologies used for authentication. It's supported by routers and switches and VPN devices and web servers. Almost anything and everything will run Radius. And if you have a Radius server, you can hook your Radius server in, and now you can authenticate across that Radius server. But Radius by itself doesn't provide any single sign-on functionality. So there's your problem, is that we can use Radius to check the username and password, but if someone else then has to authenticate and gain access to another resource, they will have to put in their username and password again. That's not single sign-on, so it would not be Radius. Same situation for TACACS. Although TACACS and TACACS Plus, whenever we say the word TACACS in the world, we really are talking about TACACS Plus. Because TACACS just hasn't been around in quite some time. So if you ever somebody say, oh, we have it, it's connected to the TACACS server, or we're configuring the TACACS server, it's really TACACS Plus. Again, TACACS Plus, incredibly useful in how it operates. There's some advantages, in fact, over using something like Radius, but it is not as well supported across the platforms and doesn't provide single sign-on. Doesn't help you either. So I think that's one that's something to know about too. Whenever you start getting into authentication, you do start getting into these challenges. LDAP's another one where I can access a database that has username and passwords and determine if somebody's using the correct username and password, but no single sign-on just because you're using LDAP. It's not there. And local authentication, definitely no single sign-on there. The only technology in this list that provides for single sign-on is Radius. That is the best choice. There are some corner cases where you could use something, or excuse me, Kerberos, corner cases where you could use things like Radius or TACACS Plus or LDAP along with other technologies to be able to provide single sign-on. But those are real corner cases, and you really don't see them very often because almost everybody's running Windows these days or have a Windows domain. So Kerberos is just a common technology to be able to use that. So hopefully that's one you're familiar with. If you're ever in a case where you are working with single sign-on or you need single sign-on, Kerberos would be the right answer for you. If you answered B, 41% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Let's do another one. I've got another question for you that asks, a computer is not communicating to the internet. That's not good. And the NIC is not displaying any lights. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Would it be an incorrect VLAN, a duplex mismatch, a damaged cable, excessive jitter, or crosstalk? A computer is not communicating to the internet, and the NIC is not displaying any lights. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? Is it an incorrect VLAN, duplex mismatch, a damaged cable, excessive jitter, or crosstalk? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll figure it out. We'll be able to get there. We just need to go through the process of taking each one of these and understanding if I have that problem, what would I expect to see? This is a big part of the last section, the last domain of most of these exams, which is the troubleshooting section. So if you are trying to troubleshoot, there's a number of things that could be going wrong. How do you recognize what those things are? And then what do you do to correct it? Those are things you have to know because you'll get questions like this on the exam. probably with a lot more detail than this, and figuring out the pieces of this. No printer questions, though. So for those of you that are damaged from the A+ certification, this is a similar idea, but with networks. So that's what we work through. I know the different options that are here. Could it be more than one of these? Not really. And that's by design. Only one of these is going to be the most likely reason for this issue. Could it be one of the others? Let me think about this. Not really. There's really one that's the best to figure it out. Hopefully you're working through it and getting all the different pieces of it. Now, if you'd like, I can put printer questions in. Folks in the chat room, for those of you that are watching, are just dying for more printer questions. They just love the printer questions. So unfortunately, sadly, Network Plus doesn't have any more printers in it. There's no printers in the Network Plus exam. That's not entirely true. I could create a question about a printer being connected to the network, but that's a network troubleshooting question, not a printer question. I'm now not even working through those. We're not going to do that. Let's answer this one. This one's hard enough, and we'll step through why the right answer is right and why the wrong answers are wrong. The question is, a computer is not communicating to the internet, and the NIC is not displaying any lights. Which of the following would be the most likely reason for this issue? I don't know why I'm saying the question in that odd way. The possible answers are A, incorrect VLAN, B, duplex mismatch, C, damaged cable, D is excessive jitter, and E is crosstalk. And if we look at the results, we can see that 91% of you, that's a pretty strong rebound from the last question. 90% of you said damaged cable. And then it's all single digits from there. A two-way tie for second place between duplex mismatch and incorrect VLAN. 1% of you said 1% said excessive jitter, and then 0% say it's crosstalk. So let's think about what these different options are and what the different things we should be looking at for this one. So damaged cables are a real key for this one. The cables themselves are pretty rugged things. You can drag them around and pull them through the ceiling and pull them down through the wall, and they're going to be just fine. But occasionally you will have someone push up against the wall. It'll get trapped between a desk and another piece of equipment, and it will look like the one that's on the screen. It's damaged. This one, I think it got cut. There's a piece of a cable sort of on the inside. This one looks like it's been chewed or something. I'm not sure what happened. This one certainly has problems. See all the wires sticking out of that one. Happens all the time. That's why it becomes very good for you to be able to cut these and recrimp if possible to have all of those. That one does look a little bit chewed on by someone. If you can't really see what's going on, you think there's a problem. The problem could be inside the wall. So often you won't even see the physical part of it. You would need some type of third-party testing device like a TDR to be able to really understand, is there a break in the cable somewhere between this part of the cable and the other end of the cable? And it will tell you if there is a break and how far down the cable that break happens to be. That'd be really a real key for this, to be able to understand which one of these problems it might be. And fixing cables, there's a whole business in that as well. So this is the answer, damaged cables. 90% of you knew it was damaged cables. That is the answer C, and that is correct. Part of this question, one of the keys with this question, was that the network interface card, the NIC, is not displaying any lights. There are lights on almost all of your Ethernet cards. You'll see them when you plug in the cable. Suddenly they either turn on or they start blinking when there's traffic. Different network interface cards work differently. There's no standard for the lights. Sometimes you'll hear these referred to as dummy lights because it tells someone who's a dummy what's going on. You don't have to look into the signal itself or understand more about where it's connecting. You can easily plug it in, and even someone like me can see, okay, I've got signal on this wire, and there's traffic that's being seen because there is some flashing of lights there. And sometimes those link lights, as we'll refer to them, mean that there is a link. But not all cables have link lights. Some cables just have traffic lights. It tells you where there's traffic going on. on those cables. So the damaged cable, if there's damage with the cable, it's not going to have any signal going back and forth. It won't be able to create a link, and therefore no lights are going to turn on. So if you plug in your Ethernet cable and you get nothing, it's just darkness, nothing is happening, it's probably a bad cable, it's probably a bad connector. For some reason, it is not able to receive the signal and auto-negotiate and begin the connection for Ethernet. And so that's why, in this case, not displaying lights does certainly point to a damaged cable. Now, what about these other options? Would those have caused issues with the lights? Let's look at the first one up here, an incorrect VLAN. That is a configuration inside the switch. And although an incorrect VLAN may limit where you're able to communicate on the network, it does not prevent you from connecting to the network. You would still see lights flashing even if the switch was configured with the incorrect VLAN. That's why it's not number A. It's not a number. Duplex mismatch. The duplex mismatch means that you've either set it for half duplex and you're receiving full duplex, or vice versa. And that will certainly impact the throughput on that connection, but it doesn't prevent that particular connection from being and receiving signal, from being on the network and receiving signal. So there's where duplex mismatch is not going to show you a problem with lights. In fact, it'll be flashing a bunch of lights, but it's just not going to send data quite as fast as you might expect. Also on this list, excessive jitter. Jitter, of course, is the measurement of traffic timings between, in many cases, frames, could be packets, but data that is received. Much broader description. So as it's receiving data, it's expecting to receive this data in a very certain, very measurable time frame. And if there are gaps in that time frame, then we have an increased amount of jitter. Jitter is the timing between receiving that data. Excessive jitter can be a significant problem for things like streaming media, voice over IP. That's why if you do receive a lot of jitter, excessive jitter, you'll start to have dropout and your audio will not be as clear. In our particular case, we had no lights at all. You won't be getting any phone calls on that one, so that's why it would not be excessive jitter. And lastly, crosstalk. Crosstalk is a signal problem. It's where there is signal on one pair of wires that is leaking over into another pair of wires. That is one that becomes an issue, especially over longer runs and over perhaps places where you're using the incorrect wiring. But it would allow you to still connect. You'll still see lights on your network interface card. It's just not going to allow the amount of data that you would hope would be able to be received through that connection. Wouldn't be crosstalk in that scenario. I guess an excessive, like a debilitating amount of crosstalk could possibly not allow a system to connect to each other. But that is not the most likely reason for this issue. The most likely reason is indeed a damaged cable. 90% of you got that one absolutely right. Answer C was the right answer. Well done. Being able to work through those. This is one where you do need to understand the troubleshooting part of this. But on the exam, there is a little bit of everything. There is encryption, there's subnetting, there is the physical networking, there's the wireless networking, there are proxies, there are topology questions, there's troubleshooting. It's extensive. My Network Plus course, 101 videos, over 12 hours of content. There's a lot there that you would have to go through. And so what I often tell people is you should go through the videos and try to take as many detailed notes as you can. One of the challenges, though, is that there's so much, and you may not be able to go through every single video. Well, it's okay. I've already made the notes for you. These are my Network Plus course notes. They have everything in here. All the pictures, the graphics, the charts, the text, everything from my videos are already in this set of notes. And it is, here's a physical version of the notes. They're sold as a PDF, so you can take a digital one, download it, and keep it on your mobile devices. This is the physical version, and the physical version has, how many pages are in this one? 66 pages of notes. Not 66 pages with the table of contents and the introduction. 66 pages of notes. There's just tons of notes in here. It's exactly the same whether you get physical or digital. But if you do buy the physical and I ship this to you, then I will give you the digital for free. You can download them immediately and start using them while you're waiting on the mail to arrive. Inside the U.S., it usually takes a week to get these, sometimes longer, depending on what's going on with weather and the mail system. But that's sort of the nature of the way the mail works. If you want more information on these course notes, you can find it at professormesser.com/NPCN. It's one of those that can really help you when you're in that last section of studying. You just need something that can tell you the details of what's in these videos. It's not meant to be standalone. It doesn't replace the videos. You should still watch the videos. There are no shortcuts, but it can really help you pull up this data later on and go through them. Hopefully it can help you as well. Let's do a callback. This sometimes happens on the actual exam as well. I have a question for you that you should be able to answer based on things that we've already talked about today. It's a very good idea because this is what you might find on the actual exam. Well, the question asks, which OSI layer is associated with a switch's forwarding decisions? Kind of difficult to read. Not quite the way I would have hoped to spell that out, but that is the basic question, is which OSI layer is associated with the switch's forwarding decisions? The possible answers are layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, or layer 7. Let's see if we know. But we're really going to do a lot with OSI today, aren't we? It's the OSI study group for some reason. Don't worry, it's not all OSI. There's no more OSI after this one, I promise you. And to be able to work through these. If you think you didn't know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll figure this out and be able to work through them. Will there be practice exams for the Network Plus in the future? I sure hope so. It's all about timing more than anything. It takes months to write a setup for a practice exams book. So hopefully we'll be able to make that happen. We'll figure it out. This is one you should know because we have talked about it already today, but you should know in general because this is one that will come up on the exam. There's a number of things in that first chapter, or is it second chapter, being able to work through these that you would have to know. So let's see how you do with this one. The question, which OSI layer is associated with a switch's forwarding decisions? Switches certainly make forwarding decisions, but what kind of switch is it? We'll have to figure it out. This is one where it does become a little bit of a challenge to interpret OSI. It's one of these few things that doesn't exist in the world. You can't touch an OSI device. There is no OSI you can work with. You can't develop, you can't program it, you can't create a VM of OSI model. That doesn't exist. And because it's not a thing, it does become a little bit more difficult for people that are just getting into networking to understand, what are you talking about? But once you get it, once you figure out the OSI model, it's a very common language we use when we're talking to other technical people, especially when you're troubleshooting and you say, I think I've got a problem at layer 3 on that device. Okay, let's look at the layer 3 config on that device. All right, you should already be interpreting the things you would need to look for on that device that would be specific to layer 3. You didn't have to say anything but that, and everybody immediately knew what you were talking about, and you can kind of focus on that piece of it. Kind of helps you with the troubleshooting process. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, which OSI layer is associated with the switch's forwarding decisions? Is that layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, or layer 7? Let's see how you answered. 72% of you, much lower than I was expecting, said layer 2. 20% of you, and we could make this argument about layer 3. You'd be wrong, but it's not layer 3. It would definitely be layer 2 for this one. OSI layer 2 is the data link layer. It's the switching layer. It's the layer where switches understand the MAC addresses of where they need to send traffic back and forth. We refer to this as the data link layer, and the MAC address itself is a data link address, data link control address, specifically DLC. So if you see DLC, you see data link, you see data link control, you see MAC address, all layer 2. That is what layer 2 is specific with. And that's why when we talk about switches, switches make forwarding decisions based on a layer 2 address, based on a MAC address in the world of Ethernet. If you're working with a router, routers make forwarding decisions based on layer 3 addresses. such as an IP address, for example. There are no such things as layer 3 switches, though. I know in the chat room you're saying there is. No such thing as a layer 3 switch. There isn't. Doesn't exist. There is no switching at layer 3. There's no routing at layer 2. So that's why. That's why we don't call them layer 2 routers, because they're not layer 2 routers, just as they are not layer 3 switches. For the perspective of someone who's trying to understand more about networking and learning what switches do and learning what routers do, it's important to focus on what these devices do at a raw, basic level. So layer 3 devices are not combo devices. They are separate devices in the same physical chassis. I think we need to do that. I've been thinking about a shirt that would say there's no such thing as a layer 3 switch. Just be blank. Like would have layer 3 switch and then just be nothing there. Be empty. No such thing as a layer 3 switch. So it's all layer 2. If you're talking about switching, it's layer 2. If you talk about routing, it's layer 3, near the twain shall meet. And I think that's the way you should think about it until you're ready to purchase. And then finally, you'll have to tell somebody I need a layer 3 switch. And you'll have to bite your tongue because it doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. And they'll sell it to you because it is a real thing. So that's the weird part of it. For those of us, though, that are trying to understand networking, I think it's important to keep those topics separate. And that's why I'm so adamant about explaining why layer 2 is switching and layer 3 is routing. I think that's an important thing to do. Once you get that, then you can call it anything you'd like. And in this case, associating a switch and the way it forwards traffic is all based on MAC address. MAC address is all done at layer 2, the data link control address. Answer B is the right answer for this one, and being able to work through those. I think this one we should have down at this point. So no more OSI questions. If you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I will be glad to send you an email that states that you watched 1 hour of a webinar category CEU if you follow these instructions. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Click on the Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, put your name, put your email address. On the subject line, if you could put August 2021 Network Plus, I would know what you're referring to, or Network Plus Study Group, just so I know that that's where this is coming from. And in the body of the message, on a line by itself, put the super secret code word, layer 3 switch. You knew I was going to do that. And you don't even have to put layer 3 switch doesn't exist. Just put layer 3 switch. And it'll be our little joke, because we know it doesn't exist. To do that again, you go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, go to the Contact Us link, put your name, your email address, subject line, put August 2021 Network Plus Study Group, and in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words, layer 3 switch. You can also put anything else you'd like in there. I read through all of these and being able to work through them. The important part is that you know what process to go through and you follow that process, because if that process isn't followed, I can't send you a message back. So that's what we do with those. So let's now shift gears a bit. I've got another question available. A little flashing going on there with some of, it's a bad connection, isn't it? Always happens in the middle of a live stream. We're almost done with this part of that particular view. So we'll get through this in just a moment. Let's do another question, though. Next question on the list asks, which of the following is commonly used to connect a switch to a router? Is it crossover, rollover, loopback, straight through, or repeater? Which of the following is commonly used to connect a switch to a router? Is it crossover, rollover, loopback, straight through, or repeater? No, the flashing that you're seeing is relating to an SDI connection with coax on my network. So that's what that one happens to be. So I need a new SDI cable. It's one of those where I really do need to put a different cable in. I have a cable that's there, so I'll be able to plug that one in shortly. In the meantime, we'll get through this. We'll figure out the details as we get through it. And you aren't going to see that particular video input until later anyway. So we'll make sure we're able to do that. Let's see how we do with this one. Yes, the serial data interface, I think is what it's called, SDI. All of the video in this studio is run over coax. How you like that? It's not HDMI. It's more of a professional, in my case, semi-professional video transmission method, a very standardized video transmission method. So that's what that's about. That's why I've got, and I have actually bought another cable because that one was acting a little hinky on another study group. So I have the cable there. It's just now me having to actually replace it. But there's so many different pieces in the puzzle. The SDI connects to a device that converts it to HDMI, which then connects to my laptop. So it could be that cable. It could be the converter. So there's troubleshooting I have to do. It's a different kind of problem. Let's see how you did with this one. Which of the following is commonly used to connect a switch to a router? Is it crossover, rollover, loopback, straight through, or repeater? And you answered, we show the results. 63% of you said you would use a straight through cable. 27% of you said you would use a crossover cable. And then effectively a three-way tie for third between rollover, loopback, and repeater, with between 3 and 5% on all of those. So this is one where we do have to get an understanding of what we would use to be able to connect devices together, and what devices are like devices and what devices are not like devices. What are different kinds of devices to be able to use this? So we're connecting a switch to a router, and we would use a straight through cable to be able to do that. That's what we would use to connect those together, is a straight through cable. Very common because the ability to plug these two devices in, one's an MDI and one's an MDIX, so we would use straight through to be able to connect those. A simple patch cable connects a switch to a router. Pretty easy to be able to do that. If you need to connect unlike devices, you need to connect a device, for instance, you may have to use other types of connections. Let's go through some since we're here. We have a workstation that we're plugging into a switch. We would use a straight through cable. That's what we would use to make those there. How about another one? What if we had a switch and we were connecting a switch to another switch? We often do that with switches in the enterprise to extend switch maybe from a closet and plug it into a switch that's in the data center. This direct connection between the switches means that we have to use a crossover. We're connecting like to like. Anytime you're connecting two devices that are identical, you're almost always going to be using a crossover for that. Next on our list, a router to a switch. That was the question here, wasn't it? Switch to router. Router to a switch. We would use straight through for that one. We already know that. We'd be able to use those. We've got router to router. Again, we're connecting two devices that are identical, like to like. So we would use crossover. Whenever there's like to like, we use crossover cable. And then workstation to workstation. It's like to like. It's a crossover cable. There was another one I've added actually to the new course. I added workstation to router, which is sort of a weird question. I see it come up from time to time. It's not a common config. You almost never would connect a computer directly to a router. The only time you would probably ever do that is if you were troubleshooting or trying to manually or administratively connect to that device and you didn't have a console cable available. I've been there. I've been in a hotel room. I'm setting up for a demo the next day. I've flown into town. They've handed me the device and I have no console cable, or mine broke or something happened. Oh, how am I going to get into this device? I can connect with Ethernet, but I need to cross over so I can be able to do that. So I added into mine, if you're connecting with Ethernet to be able to connect to that workstation to a router, you're going to be using a crossover connection. Now, if you're connecting to a console connection, that's a little bit different. In fact, let's look at these different answers. We know now that straight through is the right answer. If you answered D, straight through was the correct answer. 27% of you did say crossover was the right answer. And in fact, we know now it's not a crossover between those two. It's not what we would use. Wouldn't be a console cable between those. Console cables in some cases, a console cable can be a rollover cable. I've got pinouts for that in the course. It's effectively taking pin 8, sending it to pin 1, 7 to 2, 6 to 3, 5 to 4. I have to do this in my head. I'm going to get it wrong. And so on and so forth. Most of the time, though, our console cables are not rollover cables. That's some kind of old equipment. Usually they are null modem cables. That's another entirely different set of pinouts. We're not even going to deal with that with Network Plus, though. Loopback cables are great for testing a physical interface, sending data out of an interface. It loops it back into the same interface. It doesn't connect any device to any device. It connects a single device to itself, effectively, a single interface to itself. That's what loopback is used for. That would not be connecting a switch to a router. And then a repeater is a separate device that repeats a signal or converts a signal. We talked earlier about converting between copper to fiber and back. The device that would do that would effectively be a repeater. That converter's working at OSI Layer 1, as we're certainly aware of being able to work through that. Now, what if a device can automatically detect what you're connecting with and automatically do the crossover? In fact, many devices do the auto index type connectivity these days. They can automatically determine whether something is connecting with the right wiring and flip the wiring around. That is not a requirement for gig Ethernet. I'm trying to remember if it's a requirement for 10 gig. I've got all of this documented, and 40 gig now requires it. There's some standards of Ethernet that do require that it be able to automatically cross over, and crossover cables are not supported. Specific crossover pinouts and making changes to crossovers and creating a crossover cable is not supported in that Ethernet standard. I'm looking forward to those days where we have completely done away with our old Ethernet and crossover cables are no longer used. And we're certainly moving in that connection. However, if you are connecting devices that are not of those newer standards and crossover cables are expected, I highly recommend you use them. There are some Ethernet chipsets that can do the auto index, the auto crossover, but it can create problems on occasion. And the only way you can remove that as being one of the problems is to use the proper cable. So I think that's a pretty important thing to consider. And that's why it would not be crossover in that scenario or rollover for your serial. Loopback we talked about, and repeater we talked about. Those basically cover it. The only thing here that would be used to connect a switch to router is indeed answer D, straight through. 65% of you got that one right. You'll notice I don't have any hub questions in here, nor should you bother with an exam that asks you how to plug in a hub. No, you should not be plugging in a hub. Effectively, a hub and a switch are similar in how they connect, so that's your shortcut. However, if an exam is asking you to connect a hub, you're using a painfully outdated set of exams. Throw them out, find some better ones, because you find me a hub. That's my first question for you. Oh, you're connecting a hub? I don't think you are, because you don't have one. You can't find one. You're going to have to dig through somebody's junk drawer back 20 years to find a hub. There's no hub out there. You're not going to find. You will find one, by the way, but you're just not going to use one. Don't use a hub. That's not what you would want to use anyway. I know we're at the top of the hour. There was a special request to do one more question, so let's do one more question. And this was based on an email I received where someone was complaining about port numbers and how many port numbers there were to remember. So I thought, well, let's do a question about port numbers, of course. The question asks, a network administrator needs to communicate to a remote server over SSH. Which port number should be enabled in the firewall? Would it be TCP 23? TCP 21, TCP 22, TCP 20, or TCP 25. A network administrator needs to communicate to a remote server over SSH. Which port number needs to be enabled in the firewall? Is it TCP 23? Is it TCP 21? Is it TCP 22? Is it TCP 20? Is it TCP 25? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. Please no hints in the chat room. Please no tips in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Please none of that. in the chat room. That's easy. That's one of those. We'll figure out the details as we go through this. Your options there, you're communicate to a remote server over port 22, 23, 20, 25. Did I hit all 23, 21, 22, 20, and 25? Just anything. I didn't put 24. 20, 21, 22, 23, 25. There's a lot of 20s in there. Port 3389 is the right answer. It's not the right answer. That's not one we would have there. We will figure it out. We'll figure out what these answers are. Port numbers are one of those challenges because there is no common, easy way to work with memorizing port numbers. And my recommendation when somebody sent me a note that said, you need to help me, what can I do to help remember these port numbers? I said flashcards. There are some songs people do, rhyming that people do, images to numbers that some people will do. You have to find the right way to do it. But in this one anyway, you really do need to understand what the port is, what the application is, and probably more importantly, the desperation of memorizing this, I think, is what makes people just crazy. There is a bit of memorization on the exam, and this is one of those things that just requires you to memorize. Now, the key is, once you start using these, they just become so normal and secondary. You just know what they are off the top of your head. It's memorizing them initially, I think, on an exam like this, if this is your first time seeing this, that really becomes the challenge. Let's see how you did with this one. A network administrator needs to communicate to a remote server over SSH. What port number should be enabled in the firewall? A number in the 20s, apparently. Which one is it? 80% of you say it's port 22. 12% say it's port 23. And then single digits, 4% said 21, 3% said 25, 1% said port 20. So the real question, the thing we want to know, is obviously related to SSH. SSH is secure shell, of course. Secure shell operates on TCP port 22. If it's SSH, it's probably on port 22. It's probably what we're doing and where it is. This port number and the way that SSH operates is very similar from at least from the remote console perspective as running something like Telnet. Telnet obviously uses port 23. But as we're also aware, as you've been studying, is that SSH can also perform file transfers, similar to FTP. FTP operates at port 20 and 21. Telnet at port 23. So you can think of SSH as being right in the middle of those two. Because from a port number perspective, it is right in the middle of those two. FTP is 20 and 21. Telnet is 23. So what if you had a program, an application that could replace FTP and it could replace Telnet? You'd stick it right in the middle of port 22. And in fact, that's why it is port 22. The person who developed SSH saw that port 22 was open. They put in the request and said, this is a little file transfer. It's a little bit terminal communication. I'd really love to see it right in the middle of those two. And that's why it is port 22. So if you think about knowing what the history is of this particular protocol, that might help you remember the numbers as well. 25, we haven't talked about, but 25 on here is for email. So if you're doing any type of in the clear mail, 25, well, we're not doing in the clear mail. We're doing SSH. And SSH, indeed, TCP 22. We're not sending any data between mail servers with SMTP, thankfully. We're trying to do SSH for file transfer and or terminal communication. So that's where we would put those there. And being able to work through all of them. So that's where I think if you're ever in the case where you are trying to remember these port numbers, I think just constantly referencing back one or two a day will really help you. You do have to memorize TCP versus UDP for the exam. It certainly will help you in being able to work through these. Port 22 of the protocol TCP is the right answer. If you answered that, answer C, then you got that one absolutely correct. All of these questions today came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. If you don't have these objectives, then you're missing out. These are free, by the way. You can find a link to the CompTIA website on professormesser.com/objectives, or simply go to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. It will take you there as well. Everything you need to know. If you're wondering, what do I need to know for the exam? How do I know if I'm ready to take the exam? This document will tell you all of those things. So very good to be able to have that available. You should use that as your checklist. It's an extremely good piece of information. Might be the difference between you passing this exam and not passing is knowing what's in that list of objectives. Very, very, very important document. We also have more Network Plus study groups. The next Network Plus study group is on September 22nd. And although we will probably be in the era of the N10-008 by that point, it will still be an N10-007 study group. I'll probably keep the N10-007. We'll see how it goes. I'm thinking of switching it over in January, but it might go faster than that. I don't know. It depends on how fast books and other videos and other study materials are out. They might come out pretty quick. And if they do, then we might move that up a bit. But I'm planning to keep the 007 here until we hit that tipping point where a lot of people are doing 008. Then we can shift things over to the 008. But come back on September the 22nd. Of course, as you can see here, we have A Plus on the 14th and the 16th. We have Network Plus on the 22nd. Security Plus is on the 29th of September. We've also got Security Plus next week. I think Tuesday of next week we're doing it. Is it Tuesday or Thursday? I think it's Tuesday. If you're ever wondering, like me, when the next event is going to be, or you want to be sure I haven't changed the date, because that sometimes happens as well, visit my calendar link, professormesser.com/calendar. You'll be able to see when all the next live events are going to be. Well, we're through the first hour plus of information, but we're not done. Stick around for the after show. Don't forget about the Success Bundle at professormesser.com/netsuccess. And don't forget about my discount vouchers. And if you buy the vouchers on my site, you get my Exam Hacks ebook for free, a book that you cannot purchase anywhere. You can only get it for free, bundled with my Success Bundle or with a voucher. professormesser.com/vouchers will get you there. And we've also got, of course, the YouTube, the Twitter, and the Instagram links here that you could go to for all of those. If you did like this first hour, I'd love it if you gave this video a thumbs up. We also would love for you to subscribe to our channel. All the new Network Plus videos will be coming out shortly. And unless you are subscribed and checking in with the bell, you'll never know that they've been upgraded. Stick around for the second hour. I'm going to open up the phone lines. We will take questions from the chat room. And you can, of course, ask whatever you would like. If you have to leave us, I appreciate you being here for this first hour. And we will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. So let me see if I can quickly get some things up and running here. I'm the only one here right now. So let me get the messages off my screen. Let me change around first the graphics so that we've got a different set of graphics so that you'll know where to call in. Let me get the phone lines up and running. I guess this means I need to get Skype running, which would be good because I call into my own show. How does that work? Well, it's the cloud. I don't know what to tell you. We get the cloud running. Let me host a show up. I will call into my show if you will bear with me, and then I will tell you how you can call into the show in just a moment. Let me call in. It's going to make some noises here as it goes through this process. I need to bring my mixer a little bit closer to me. I can't even hear myself in here. Okay, let me put in my numbers here with a pound sign.
Enter your 6-digit PIN.
I will do that if I can remember what that happens to be. I believe I can. And if I do this correctly, the nice lady will say,
"Welcome, Professor Messer."
Well, thank you, nice lady. That means I did something at least a little bit the way it should be. I'm getting a lower volume on here than I'm accustomed to seeing. So we're going to see how well that goes with us. Now, if you would like to participate, that's not the graphic you would need. There it is. I'll be looking at the chat room. So if you are here live, I will, of course, see you in the chat room. I'll answer questions from there, and I'll talk to questions that are already coming up. But you can also call in if you're in the continental U.S. You can call in to our studio line at a toll-free number, 855-785-RJ45. You can also call from anywhere in the continental U.S., 855-785-7545. If you're outside of the continental U.S., you can also call in on Skype for free. You just put a +1 at the beginning. It's +1 855-785-7545. We'll get you there. So you got some options, things you can do to call in. One of the questions in the chat room came from that original performance-based question we did a while back that asked how an administrator modifying the subnet mask of a server fits into OSI Layer 3. Well, that's because the subnet mask is part of the IP addressing scheme. IP addresses obviously are at Layer 3. Therefore, subnet masks are at Layer 3. Default gateway references are at Layer 3. DNS configuration settings are at Layer 3. Everything that would be associated with an IP address, a subnet mask, or anything with that addressing is all Layer 3. So that is why we chose Layer 3 for that one. Hopefully that gives you a little more clarification for OSI. OSI is such a challenge if you've never worked with it before to be able to have that there. Also in the chat room, when the 007 retires, can you take that or does it have to be the 008? Well, the 007 will retire in the summer of 2022. When the 007 retires in the summer, then the 008 will be the only thing left. Once the exam retires, you can't take it anymore. So that's why I tell people that's why that works that way. You can't, once it's retired, it's gone. But that's why they give you this overlap. So although the 008 comes out next month, we've got all these many months before the 007 goes away so that you are not caught by any type of suddenly the exam goes away and you have to restart. You got plenty of time. In this case, about 9 months that you have before the exam is retired. That's plenty of time to be able to make that happen. In the chat room, 40 the Rapper. Okay, we're going with that. I thought that was my name, but it's apparently your name. 40 the Rapper did a super chat, $100 super chat. I looked, that's US dollars. Thank you. That is an incredibly generous super chat. Thank you. 40 puts in the super chat, passed my A+ 1002 2 weeks ago. Congratulations. That is a great thing to suddenly have. Finally, you're through both of those A+ certifications. So useful. You don't know how much it meant to me and how much your videos and live streams helped me. I'm so glad to hear it. I, of course, always tell people, and it's true, that you did the hard part. You actually had to take this thing. I am so pleased you were able to get through it and get that A+ certification. It is a game changer for so many people to be able to have that certification and use that to be able to earn or get a chance to interview with a company. It could be such a difference and such a game changer for people that need that job, that want to get into IT. A+ is that first step. It's remarkable to me how many people kind of complain that others are taking the A+ certification. And it's just something that always is a wonderment. I'm always taken aback at people angry that other people are earning their A+ certification and working towards a better life and earning more money and supporting their family or themselves or whatever it is, whatever your reason is for getting into IT. The capability for you to do this is there. I want to give you all the tools you need to be able to make that happen. The ability for you to move up to whatever heights you would like in IT, both professionally, monetarily, just career-wise, whatever you want to do, you've got the options. IT gives you a lot of options. I work with a number of people that were all about moving up in the organization and being the next CEO. You can do that. I have other people I've worked with that are really more interested in finding a job that can give them flexibility with their working schedule. IT allows you to do that. I have people like myself that wanted to travel the world, that wanted to see other countries, that wanted to visit Australia and England and France and Bangkok and Japan and Korea and just see whatever was out there, IT allowed me to do that. And it can do it for you as well. Why anyone would not want you to do that is beyond me. So I always tell people, if you're working in your A+, go get that A+ certification. And what you'll find is once you have A+, employers say, we'd love for you to have this cert. We'd love for you to have that cert. We'd love for you to have this cert. So find a way to make that happen. You'll be learning throughout your entire career. There's never a point where you get to say, okay, I'm all learned up now. I'm all finished. I'm good. Don't have to learn anymore. That never happens. There's always something new. There's always something different. When I started in IT, there was no internet. I know I look like a baby. How could that be possible? And yet, so true. And so all of the things that have happened with the internet are things we have all had to learn through the years. And the same thing for the next big technology that rolls through. We're all starting from ground zero and learning as we go. As long as you can do that and remember to keep doing that, you're going to do just fine in your career and working through those pieces. So I think that's whenever I start looking at learning IT, understanding the concepts of what I need to learn with IT, they're all out there. Find the niche that you like the most, drill down into that, you're going to do great. And I really do appreciate that super chat. Thank you so much. It does go a long way to keeping the lights on. Let's go now to phone calls. Let's go to the 204 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor. My name is James, and I'm calling from Canada.
Well, James, thank you for calling. What can we do for you?
Well, I'm considering taking the Network Plus exam in the next little bit. And my biggest question is, when I go to take the exam, if I'm stuck on a question, and stuck as in, the question's ambiguous or the answers are ambiguous and I need help, I assume the invigilator may not have the technical expertise required to fully answer my question. So for people who have taken the exam, my question is, what options are there mid-exam if there are questions about the questions?
You will have no help on getting questions about the questions. Like not just no help, like negative help. If there's a problem with the testing process, if the questions aren't visible on your screen, if there are graphics that are cut off, if you're having the mouse isn't working properly, if the video is not working the way it should be, then the administrator for the exam service that you are online talking to, or the one that's in the testing center where you happen to be, can come over and resolve that particular problem. But for any questions relating to the exam itself, relating to I'm not sure what they're asking for. This question doesn't seem to have the right context. The answers don't seem to be associated with the question, or the question itself. I don't understand the grammar that sometimes you get some bad questions on some of these exams. They can't help you at all. They provide not just can't help you, they won't help you with any internal aspects of the content of the exam itself. So you will never be able to have somebody maybe give you some context or help you understand some oddly worded information, because they can't and won't help you with that piece of it. In fact, most of the time, the people that are proctoring the exam don't have any knowledge of networking or IT in general anyway. All they know is how to make sure the exam works properly and that you can see it, that your keyboard works, that your mouse works. Other than that, the rest of it's up to you. What you would probably do, and the chat room is correct, you would flag the question. There's a checkbox on every single question. You can flag it and just keep moving. Do not sit on a question and dwell on what happens to be there. Don't ever waste time on the exam. You have 90 questions maximum. You have 90 minutes. That's not a lot of time. So focus on getting through as many questions as you can. And if you have one that just throws you, flag it and keep going. Flag it and keep going, because there will be other questions on the exam that you will know that you can answer, that you want to be sure you answer correctly. And there might also be questions later on in the exam that answer the question you were having about that original problem that you sat through. So sometimes that can help as well. But you will not be getting a lot of help from the folks on that in the exam center itself, James.
Nope, that's pretty much what I expected. So thank you for just confirming that, and thanks also to the members of the chat who answered the same. Thanks.
They are spot on. Thanks for the call, James. whenever I start looking at trying to break through and understand some of these questions, sometimes you will get some questions on the exam that just don't make sense. They're much better lately, but previous versions of the exam have sometimes been questions that I thought they wrote in English and then they put into a language translator to convert it to another language, and then they put it into another language translator to convert it back to English, and then they put that one on the exam. Like, how did they come up with the grammar that I'm reading here? But what I think now on most of the latest exams, I've been very pleased on how straightforward and well-written the exam questions are these days. So don't worry that it looks odd or you're running across one that's not quite right. If you do hit that, it's a rarity first. And secondly, maybe that you're just reading it wrong, and when you come back to it, it'll work itself out again. That's another one of those where it's really up to you to keep it moving. Try to answer as much as you can. There's not much you can do. Just keep going through the exam, and I think you'll be fine. Let's go back to the phone calls. We have John in Orlando. Hello, John. Are you? Oh, wait.
Hi, Professor Messer. Just wanted to say I passed a couple weeks ago.
All right.
On the 22nd of July. And that was despite having the same issues on the PBQs that I told you about before. So thank God for your notes and all your videos and everything, because had I not scored, extremely high on that multiple choice, I think I'd probably be back studying to retake it again. But what I was curious about today on the Network Plus, is there a good source for some practice exams? And the other question was, do you know of a good book that follows the syllabus, the same order that the syllabus has? Because I've noticed a lot of people jump around, and it's like you got to sit there and, I don't know, it just makes it a little, for me, I find that a little more confusing when they're not following the same order as the syllabus. But
it's a little bit of the choice of the author. And if you were to look at the exam objectives themselves, what you will find is they're not always put into the order that makes a lot of sense. They don't, that the exam objectives, although well structured, don't necessarily put things in the order that even I would put them in. I look at the newest certification exam, the N10-008. I'm currently in the middle of shooting videos for those. The course notes are being worked on. We're getting ready for the update and the release next month. And they start with the OSI model. It's the first thing you learn on the it's the first thing listed on the N10-008. And I don't know if I would start there. I might start more with what is Ethernet? What is a network? Or what is IP? Or how am I supposed to apply the concepts of the OSI model unless I've learned what a switch and a router were first? So that I know switches operate at layer 2, routers operate at layer 3, and that there's no such thing as a layer 3 switch. So that's one of those cases where you sort of have to put yourself, if you're looking to go in that same order, you kind of have to have some basic knowledge before you jump into the book. But I can appreciate an author that likes to jump and begin with the fundamentals, as if someone who's reading the book has never really been around networks before, but that means they're going to have to scramble up all the exam objectives and put them in the order that they would like them to be in. Both ways are good. There are advantages and disadvantages to putting the information out there in those different formats. It's just that if you're working in a scrambled format of a book, you're going to have to reference. Usually they have a cross-reference there that cross-references a chapter with what sections of the exam objectives they're talking about. But there are some books, and I want to say that the CompTIA book, I need to read through the CompTIA book. I think that is one that does put things in the order of the exam objectives, which makes it so easy to find things. Because if you're starting with a set of videos that starts with the OSI model, and you have a book that starts with the OSI model, and you have some notes that start with the OSI model, very easy to find things. very easy to hunt down what you're looking for because they're all at the very beginning and they're all numbered exactly the same and they all follow the same process through the book. So I think the CompTIA book does that, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. I need to go look through it myself. But that's one where you may just want to look at the book. If you go out to Amazon and you look through those books, you'll notice that you can read through the index, for example, the table of contents, and very often the index. But the table of contents will show you what order it's in, and then you can compare that to the exam objectives and see if that happens to match up. And if it doesn't match up, you can make the decision on whether the book is good enough to kind of skip around, or maybe you really do want a book that follows the objectives. I think it's everybody has their own personal choice along those lines. You just have to find the one that works best for you.
What about the practice exams, though, on that issue?
I do know that CompTIA will have a new set of practice exams for the N10-008. I have not seen any for the N10-007 myself personally, so there may be some people on the CompTIA subreddit or in the chat here that have used some from other places. They may have some recommendations. As I mentioned earlier, I don't have a set of practice exams for the N10-007, and I'm not really expecting to create any now that it will be gone in a number of months. But that's one I think that maybe other people might be able to do. I just don't have time to go out and have a look at them, and I'm very picky with my practice exam questions. So whenever I do go out and look at other people's practice exam questions, usually they're just sent to me. All it really does is just frustrate me to no end that someone wrote this and is expecting you to learn from it. So I try to stay away from those just for my blood pressure.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Congratulations on the exam. I'm sorry it's the performance-based questions messed you up again, as we're seeing with the reports, and I think I mentioned on the call you had with me earlier before the exam, it seems to be coming up a lot on the online exams. And was this, again, an online exam you went through?
I did it in the testing center.
Really? So it was...
I've never taken one.
Oh, that's right.
Online.
It was the testing center that was the biggest problem with, I think it was drag and drop was the issue, wasn't it?
It was the, I'll just say the disk management problem.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
So we have a number of challenges with these performance-based questions because it's an environment that is not the multiple choice. We have people that are taking it online that are having problems with drag and drop, and you were not the only one who was having a problem with some of these scenario questions, specifically ones surrounding the concept of disk management. Don't want to give too much away about that question, but they were also having problems. You were not the only one along those lines. It makes me wonder if they're grading that question or if they've decided not to. I don't know. But you passed, though, and that's the important part.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So congratulations,
exactly.
If nothing else, to get through that. And best of luck with Network Plus. And if you do find a book you really, really like, call us back and let us know.
Sure. Thank you.
Appreciate the call. Best of luck, John.
Mm-hmm.
That's whenever I start looking at books, they are many and varied. Often they are very good books for Q&A. Many books have really good practice questions in them. So you may find that the book that you have, you may have not even noticed their questions either before or after the chapter. Those might be a good source of questions too. The real challenge I've had with a lot of online questions is that they are either poorly written, or the thing that probably is the biggest gotcha for folks is that they will take these practice exams and they ask questions about topics that are not in the exam objectives. And very often what I'll find is they're asking questions from a previous exam version that CompTIA dropped that topic from the exam, but they didn't drop it from their exam questions. So it's sort of a waste of time. At that point, you're having to take a question, take a practice exam on something that you're never going to see on the exam because CompTIA dropped it. That's a little frustrating for folks. And I get it. That would be frustrating for me as well. So that's when, if you're in a case where you're seeing something odd on a practice exam, go back and look at the exam objectives and see if they appear on the exam objectives. And if they don't, you can just throw out that question, because CompTIA stays very, very close to the exam objectives. That's what I would recommend if you are ever in the case of going through these practice exams, because I get a lot of emails sent to me throughout the week where somebody has pasted in a third-party question. And often I see the same one over and over and over again, because it is just so bad in the way that it is either written or the answers that were available. But my standing rule, and you will see this if you ever send me a question, like, here's a question I got from somewhere and it doesn't sound right. What's the answer? I get so many of those. I just don't have the time in the day to be able to reply back to them. So the best I can really tell you is, I don't know. You should go talk to the person who wrote it and see if they can tell you why they wrote it that way. Because I'm effectively having to repeat that same answer or see the same questions coming through in my inbox over and over and over again. So I think if you're good enough that you can recognize there's something wrong with that, you don't need to email me. You already figured it out. You already know it's a bad question. You already know that something's not quite right with that. Throw out the question, keep moving. I think that's the best thing you can do, and maybe find some better questions in this. From the chat room, Corey is talking about my 7-second subnetting video. It's the process I use when I take a networking exam that requires a lot of subnetting. I have a chart that I write out that really helps me subnet quickly. It's a sort of an adjunct or an add-on to what a lot of people memorize as the magic number method. Think of it as the magic number method with everything already written out for you. That's really what 7-second subnetting is. The problem is that you need something to write on to be able to do that. And if you're taking the exam in a testing center, there's plenty of things to write on. They will give you a sheet of paper. I often tell people, bring in your own fine-tipped erase marker, dry erase marker, and make sure that they approve it at the desk. And that's a great way to have your own whiteboard that you can actually work with. But there is a whiteboard practice that you can use on the Pearson VUE website, so that if you're taking this exam online, a lot of us are, we're not going to a testing center, we want to take it online, but you'd like to get familiar with the process before you go, you can go to the Pearson VUE website and practice yourself. They put a whiteboard on the screen, the same whiteboard you would use for your exam, and you can learn what to click. Oh, see, there's a click. I can click on the pieces here, and then I can do my own subnetting charts on the screen. I can just type them in really quick, and then they're always there and available throughout the entire exam. I mean, you can also, if you wanted to, you could use this and use your mouse to draw with. That just seems ridiculous. That doesn't seem very useful to me. I prefer just typing things in and writing them down, or editing them or modifying them or whatever it happens to be. That's where I would put my charts, or on that. That is the Pearson VUE using the whiteboard during your on-VUE exam. We'll have Lori put this link into the notes. It's home.pearsonvue.com/onview/whiteboard. Or I think I just Googled on-VUE whiteboard and practice. I think that's what I did and found it pretty easily. It's Googleable. You'll be able to have that. There is a text box. See, some of you did not even know that you could type things in and have all of your port numbers here. So you could type in, just do a little bit of a brain dump and put some of these numbers in, and then they're always going to be there when you're through the exam. So that's very simple. Very useful, too. And it's nice they give us a practice so we can get used to it now before you walk or before you start the online VUE. This is not what's in the exam in a testing center. In a testing center, they give you usually a piece of paper. Usually it's a laminated piece of 8.5 by 11 sized paper. And they give you a dry erase marker with a really bad tip on it. So whatever you write down, you won't be able to read later. That's why I always tell people, might be a good idea to invest in a fine-tipped dry erase marker and bring that in and give it to the front desk and say, I brought my own marker. Can I just use this? And whenever I've done that, they've always said, yeah, let me look at it. Yep, there's nothing in there that would be recording anything or giving you any answers. You can certainly use that. So that's another one. Just depends on what your method is for subnetting. To that point, a lot of you have asked, I use in my exam the 7-second subnetting method, but a lot of people have learned subnetting or want to learn subnetting the way that Cisco teaches it. On the Cisco exams, they use a method called the magic number method. So in my N10-008 videos, I have a magic number video as well. So you can decide, do I want to do some extra math? I'll use the magic number method. Do I want all the math taken out and put into a chart so I don't have to do any math? I'll use the 7-second method. Either way works for people. They usually find the one that works for them, or it's a combination of the two. And maybe I can get that 7-second, or rather the magic number video and the new 7-second video just created now, and maybe I'll just publish it over the next week. Even though the new version of the exam isn't out, it might be something you can use now with the N10-007. Might be useful. You do empty your pockets, and you have to get rid of everything before going into the exam. But if you say, I want to use this marker, every time I've gone into a testing center, my local testing center says, yeah, you can use this, no problem. Just give me mine back. We'll swap these out. You can use this one. And that works fine. I think that's a very good way to do it. So if you're someone who is wanting the best possible testing environment, sometimes you have to do things yourself. And that's one of those things I do myself. Back to the phone lines. Let's go to 540 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Daniel Lauber. I'm calling from Virginia.
Hey, Daniel from Virginia.
And so I actually have two questions now.
Okay.
I was saying, one was more of a comment, and it was, yes, please post that video. That would be amazing. I would love to see how Cisco does it.
Okay.
And you explain things extremely well. And my second one was, so I'm about to take my Security Plus, and I'm moving on to Certified Ethical Hacker because I find it really interesting.
Okay.
And I was wondering if you would be interested in posting like a template to your notes, because I love how you lay out your course notes, and I tried to open it in Word doc and edit it, and the format was kind of off. So that is my question.
In my
okay if I'm not asking.
Oh, that's a great question. The first, I will publish that magic number method primarily because I've already shot it. So it's very easy for me to say. I've already shot that video. There's been tons of videos we've already shot for the new Network Plus. That one's waiting to be edited. And it doesn't take too long for me to edit those videos. So I will try to endeavor to get that out this week. I realize it's Wednesday, but hopefully I can get that done the next couple of days and stick it on YouTube. It's another great reason to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the bell so that you'll know immediately when that video is out. I'll try to get that done this week so that other people can look through it. I don't find the magic number method to be that much easier than the 7-second subnetting. It really is a more mathematical version of the 7-second subnetting, but I think somewhere in between is where most people usually go, and I talk about that in the video, so I will be glad to do it. That's one I think that could really help people as they are going through these pieces. And you had a second question. What was the second question, Daniel?
It was if you could post a template of your course notes. I love how you lay out your course notes.
Got it.
They're extremely helpful. Love them. Especially when you're reviewing things, it's quick to reference back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a challenge. One of the things with Microsoft Word and other word processing applications is they don't necessarily follow or allow you to do much detailed really layout. Really, that's the real challenge, is doing some type of layout in these. I'm going to bring up the course notes and what I used for the N10-007. These are the N10-007 course notes. They are. You really need some type of layout program, and I've used a number of different ones through the years. There are some open source options available as well. But I have already have the Adobe products that I use. I use Premiere Pro to do my editing for the videos. I use Photoshop for some things sometimes. Most of the time I'm using Adobe's InDesign layout application, and that's what this is. So if you were going to look at, these are my N10-007 course notes. What's great about this, it really allows me to zoom in and out. That's what I'm seeing on the screen. That's my real-time view. Well, let me get behind me. So this is my real-time view of it. Usually not that large. Sometimes you do have to move in pretty close because you can move things. Really, you can see me moving that on the screen. Such a small amount of movement that you can do, and it really changes, and it stays exactly where you put it. So I'm able to get down to the 1 pixel movement on the screen to be able to put all of these details in. And if I need to change the size of an image, all the functionality is in here to make it whatever size I would like and to change it around. These layout programs, kind of the desktop publishing layout programs, are fantastic for this. So if you have the ability, or you have the Adobe products in there now that you could work with, those are great to use for this. But there are a number of open source Word layout programs like this that you could use for desktop publishing layout. And I think if you hunt for those, I think you'll be just fine. The first set of course notes I did, I used some open source. What did I use originally? Let me find the one I was using. It was Scribus or Scribus. Scribus? Scribe? I guess it would be Scribus because you're scribing. You are a scribe. And that I found on scribus.net, open source desktop publishing. So you can even do it for free. You don't have to go to Adobe and buy a subscription or purchase an application. This is a perfectly capable and well-designed open source. There were some shortcomings I found, especially around configuring and getting it to work properly with the PDF publishing that I like to use, which is why I don't use it any longer. But for the first sets of course notes I created them in Scribus. So that may be a good option for you as well.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate the call. Thanks. It's one of those things where it may not even be for course notes. You may be writing your own book. You may be creating your own content. You may be wanting to do a similar type of layout with your notes. Well, that'd be a perfectly easy way to do it. And my notes are pretty basic. I mean, it's really me putting in some text and then the bullets from the course and then pulling in the graphics. It takes a little bit of time. There's a little bit of a ramp to be able to learn the keys and how you put it in and how you move it and how you properly size things. But once you get going with it, it goes really, really fast. Now, for me, of course, these course notes books have gone beyond, I think the first ones I ever created were like 10 pages long. The current Network Plus is over 60 pages long. It looks like the one I'm working on now for the N10-008, how about I give you a little bit of inside scoop. No, that's the Cisco. I did have a set of Cisco course notes at one time before that exam change. Those are no longer valid. But the N10-008 course notes, I'm already up to 42 pages, and I'm still in domain 2 of these. So if you were trying to really find, so here's the new course notes. A lot of the content's the same. The 40% of the exam is new. So there are some new topics on the N10-008 course notes, but there's also a lot of familiar topics on here as well. So you'll find the one that works for you and be able to use those. I think all of those in the chat room, some people say pages. Are you referring to the pages from Apple Pages, or is it a different Pages? Or is it Pages and Affinity Publisher? Is that one single product? I've never used Affinity Publisher either. Just one of those where you just have to figure out what works for you. In my case, the Adobe InDesign worked for me. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be whatever you use. This is one where it can be involved to create these course notes. And it's Apple Pages. Apple Pages is pretty good, but it is more of a word processing. It doesn't give you the fine-tuned desktop publishing layout that something like Adobe InDesign or Scribus would do. Scribus would do, because I'm a scribe. Got to have that in my head. That would not quite be it, but maybe the affinity stuff. Affinity Publisher, the name sounds like exactly what you would use, doesn't it? Those would all be good to be able to work with. The thing I liked about the Scribus is that it's open source and different operating system support as well. So you can run it in Windows. You can run it in fact, when I did those, I believe I was running it in Windows, but there's Mac OS options, Linux options, and other things you can run too. Great little utilities. May be also useful for some of the documentation that you do from maybe that you're setting up in your environment. I realize a lot of us use spreadsheets and just normal Word docs because they are very easy to share with others. But if you're creating a very complex help document, maybe something from the knowledge base, and you would like it to have a few of these enhanced capabilities that you would have with a desktop publishing program, then use one of those. I think they look better. And for some of us that have worked as systems engineers for larger companies where we are creating published documents and giving those to our end users, it would be great if it was something that did look professional, that we could hand out, that wasn't just a Word doc. It's a nice PDF, well laid out. There's graphics, there's a title page, all those things. And that's what I do when I put it into the InDesign. As with anything else, it's not really about the program you use. It's more about what the content is. So focus on the content, and then everything else will fall into place. That's the best advice I could probably give you for working with those. Back to the phone lines. Let's go to the 206 area code. Hi, caller. Which name were you calling from?
My name is Josh. I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
Hey, Josh. What can we do for you?
I was just wondering if I'm looking to get a 4-year degree, and I want to get a 4-year degree and go to a college that's going to offer certifications. I've seen a few online, for example, Western Governors Universities. I was just wondering if you or anyone in the chat room had any experience with any of these colleges. I know there's other ones. I'm not aware of them. And just what the experience was like.
This is a pretty good question. And it varies widely depending on the college or educational institution. One of the challenges I have found, many people have found, with getting a higher level degree, a 4-year degree, what we use here in the United States is that 4-year degree, and getting that university or college degree, but also get the degree with some type of emphasis in information technology, is very often impossible to find. Certainly seems to be difficult to find in the traditional university systems that we have in the United States. If you go to a traditional 4-year state university, there will be plenty of classes on programming, computer science, designing hardware, doing anything relating to very complex development efforts and building your own applications and understanding the logic and working with programming. But nothing on the IT side, or relatively few comparatively to the IT side. A lot of 4-year degree, a lot of traditional 4-year colleges and universities see IT as something that you can be trained on, but is not something that you become knowledgeable about. This is their argument, is that universities teach you knowledge, and these other IT organizations, they train you, as if there is some differentiation between the two. I don't see the differentiation between the two. As someone who has a 4-year degree in business management and somebody who is well trained on the IT side, you could do this for a 4-year degree and you would be crushing it in IT. Some companies or some organizations, some 4-year schools have started to realize this and are slowly moving towards more of an IT emphasis, which is great. But it's very slow, and it doesn't have the scope that employers would like to see. Employers would like you to be knowledgeable with all the Microsoft capabilities, knowledgeable on the networking side, knowledgeable with the Cisco, knowledgeable with security. They don't have that. So you have to go somewhere that does focus on those things. Interestingly enough, as some people have mentioned in the chat room, the local community colleges tend to have more of a better IT program than the four-year university that's down the road from them. Constantly seems to be the case. I've also found the case that there are newer and different four-year configurations like Western Governors, where the emphasis is on IT and is on certification. For those of you that sort of followed me through the years, my son just graduated from a private college in Orlando that focuses on cloud technologies. So he's now in the marketplace looking for a job because he just graduated this past month, and he has all of these skills around cloud technologies. So I've been talking to him about the networking he's been doing, the building out of the containerization that he's been working with, doing all sorts of fantastic cloud-based technologies. They really were hitting all of those brand new the latest cloud-based technologies. And now he's got a skill set that probably is a lot better than most people coming out of a four-year degree at a traditional university, because they had to go through calculus. I don't know. When do you ever use calculus in IT? You never use calculus in IT. And other places like Western Governors have done a similar thing. They focus on what you need to know to get a job in IT, which I think is great. And we can sort of ignore the more stodgy, stuffy, traditional four-year universities that tend to sit around and talk about how they are providing you with the knowledge of the world that just so happens is not going to help you at all get a job and make money, ironically. So if you are in a four-year degree and you're working towards that, I think it's important to have a four-year degree. As I've said in my video of how to get a job in IT with no experience, employers are looking for four-year degrees, whatever it happens to be. The more usable four-year degree, the better. Something like business, something like economics, something along those lines is great. But having the certifications is also going to be important as well. And if you can combine those things like WGU does, I have no personal knowledge of WGU. I've never gone there. I've never really done a lot of investigation into the internals of what they offer, but I've seen their syllabus and gotten the feel for that. They got a really nice layout of things that you're going to learn. Now, in the chat rooms, folks are asking, Stephen's asking, what about a two-year degree? You go get in the United States, it's an AA degree, Associate of Arts degree. Those are good. That's a good step. But employers are not necessarily looking for an AA degree. They want you to have a Bachelor's of Science, a Bachelor of Arts. They want something that is a traditional four-year degree that you can then apply to the job with. Two-year degree is not quite the same. It's not quite what they're looking for. Certainly better than nothing, but they really still, even today, would love to see four-year degrees. That is not across the board, though. There are some employers that would love to give you a job, whether you have a degree or not. But you got to find the right combination of those. Usually, the larger the organization, the more traditional set of skills and degrees that they would like you to bring to the table. So that's the key. And you'll find that if you find the right mix of training / university / IT knowledge, you can combine that with certifications, and you're going to have a very good set of credentials to present to a prospective employer. I don't think one replaces the other. I think a four-year degree has its own set of advantages and brings to the table something that's unique. Four-year degree does not replace certifications. Certifications do not replace a four-year degree. They work hand in hand. You need both of those. If you can do them all at one time, more the better. So that's the key. What about an accelerated bachelor degree? I think those are great too. The cloud computing degree that my son got was an accelerated degree. He went to school every day of the week, all day, and did that for a year and a half and got that degree. It was very much accelerated. Military experience helps as well. And it may be that the employer, this is very employer specific, some employers take military experience and can swap some of those things out with a formal degree or specific knowledge in different things. The military trains so well. Why not bring someone in who has the training, regardless of whether they have the degree? That's the way I think about it. I worked with a lot of people in IT who were incredibly successful technologists that did not have a 4-year degree, but they knew their stuff in and out. You can depend on them, and they knew exactly what they were doing. They just didn't go to a 4-year college. They learned that in other ways. So a 4-year degree is not a must-have as it might be for someone who is getting a law degree, a medical degree. Those things really require you to have a 4-year degree. IT doesn't work that way. IT, you could find kind of a happy medium in there if you don't have a 4-year degree, and that might help as well. I realize that's sort of a long answer to that question, Josh, but maybe that gives you some perspective.
Yeah, I just had one follow-up question
Sure.
to that, if that's okay. So currently, we'll bring it down more to a personal one for myself. I've finished a 2-year degree in IT management, and I'm opted to go to a 4-year technical school where I'm IT, or maybe pull it back here. I got a network degree. A 4-year degree at a 4-year traditional school would be a IT management degree, and it only focuses on academic classes, and IT classes like WGU or some type of real IT schooling. So if I went to WGU, it would be longer. It would take more time, and I have to do certifications. Or I could go to get the IT management degree. It will be done in 1 year, and I can also just self-study to get the IT certification. From an employer standpoint, would you just knock out the 4-year degree to remove that hurdle and then continue working on certifications? Or you say, no, you should probably really work on these certifications, and in time, maybe I would say 2.5 years to get that 4-year degree. But that would be the time difference. What are your thoughts on that?
There absolutely was a little bit of dropout there. Some of the folks in the chat room are going, an excessive jitter. We've now demonstrated what excessive jitter is. So there was a little bit of dropout there in that, Josh. But if I can summarize for the people that are on the call, the basic idea is that ongoing challenge between getting a traditional 4-year degree versus getting a degree that focuses on certifications. Is one better than the other? Is one expected to be by employers? Do the employers expect you to have one versus the other? Is there an advantage to going maybe to an accelerated program that will give you and finish up a 4-year maybe business management degree that you can then supplement with certifications? Or do you focus on a program like WGU, where it really is a 4-year degree that consists of lots of certifications and tons of classes along those lines, and they don't really take you into classes on a lot of classes on personnel management, cost accounting, business type process. They don't take you through a ton of the traditional university management classes. You're really focusing on IT classes. And the base, I would say the traditional employer would like you to have a 4-year degree in business management or 4-year degree in maybe information technology. There are some schools, traditional schools, offering those types of things. But it's usually in a 4-year university in information technology. I've seen those syllabus, the layout of what that degree is, and it's really a lot of programming classes with some business stuff stuck into the middle of it. They sort of just kind of shoehorned what they already had and created an IT degree, and doesn't actually teach you anything related to IT, which is, not necessarily a bad thing. A business management degree doesn't actually teach you how to manage anyone. So there's a lot of that going on in the 4-year colleges. It's really more about what employers are looking for. And I can't answer that question for you, but if there's a particular organization in your area that's hiring and you are curious as to which one they would like better, I say ask them. One of the best things you could do is go out to LinkedIn, find that person who's handling admissions or for that university, or find out who's doing interviewing for the company you're interested in, and send them a LinkedIn and say, what are you hiring for? Are you looking for a 4-year degree? Are you looking for certifications? Vice versa, you can ask the people at the university, what do these courses give me as far as IT? And see if they have an example of this. And you may find that, and you will find that the 4-year degrees vary widely from university to university in what they offer in a technical degree. Some universities have caught on. They've caught on fast and realized, wow, we need to start teaching technology because that's what people are hiring. And if you can find a university that's a little bit forward thinking, that is already implementing Cisco and Microsoft courses within what they are doing, and you're working on routers and you're working on switches and you're building out technologies in a lab, that's a great school. Go with that. But if you look at the list and they're teaching you programming classes and you have to take calculus, they haven't figured it out yet. And I'm speaking specifically on schools I looked at over the last year. That's what they're offering. They haven't figured it out yet. They just want you to come in, take the classes, and I don't know what you do at that point. You don't have any functional IT experience of anything at that point. So that's my recommendation would be a little of both. I think most employers still would love you to have that traditional 4-year degree, but I'm finding more and more employers don't necessarily worry about that. They're becoming more aware of Western governors and other organizations like it and are leaning that way more often than not because they know you have some practical knowledge that you can use day one when you sit down in their chair and be able to do things that maybe somebody from a 4-year degree simply can't do.
Well, hey, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. That's one of those that is an ongoing, constant measurement of what 4-year degrees are out there and what people are doing. And about every year or so, I go out to schools and I just randomly pick a university somewhere in the country and we look through what do they offer as far as IT? What did they offer as far as IT? How about some of these other schools like Western University? What about some of these other private 4-year degrees that are focusing on technology where you actually walk out the door with these skills that you can then bring to the table? Are they better or worse, and what's happening? Where are the trends going? There's not been a lot of motion on the trends over the last year. Well, that really speaks to anything. There's not been a lot of change over the last year just because we've all just had to figure out how to use our VPNs. But I think now we can, hopefully 12 months from now, we will have a little more normalcy in the things that we are doing. We will see. And maybe some more changes in what universities and schools are offering to kind of bring them up to the modern world. I know a big frustration for a lot of people when they're trying to learn IT from a 4-year college is they're just not finding it because the colleges, for better or worse, have this mentality that their goal is to provide you with knowledge, not to train you. I don't know. I don't understand. It's a very weird way to look at the world, but that's the way they do it. I'm sitting here as someone who has that 4-year business degree, that I've been through that system. I understand what those universities are providing to you. And there are things I learned within that degree that do help me from a business perspective. But I'm trying to get IT training. I'm trying to get ready for an IT position and move up in IT. And I went to 2 years of these crazy math and chemistry courses and not really doing a lot of chemistry these days, not doing a lot of higher level math. I need to know my powers of 2, how to add 1 and how to subtract 1. That's the math I need to know to be an expert in networking. So calculus doesn't help me very much. It's different if you're in computer science. If you're programming, you're building apps, you're on that side of the technology world, helps you a lot. But those of us in IT, we're not building apps. We're not creating applications. We're not creating mobile apps. We're not building applications for someone to use. We're trying to keep the apps running. We're trying to keep them secure, trying to keep our data secure. It's a different scenario. And so maybe the universities will catch up in the next year. We will see if that's the case. Back to phones, Florida connection, 904 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Michael. I'm from Orlando.
Hey, Michael. I thank you for calling. Good to have a Florida connection. What can we do for you?
I don't actually have a question. First of all, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I actually watched all your videos, and I have the entire CompTIA suite. So I have to thank you immensely for helping me with that.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad it could help. Is this something that you have been working on with different certs? Did you earn the certifications? What's your status?
Yeah, no, I have them. I did it all in my free time. I actually, the reason why I'm calling in is because I'm a university student going to a 4-year college, and you actually were just talking about how the programs are different. Well, I go to a public university, and I got to say, I completely agree. Like, I've had to take up to calculus and chemistry classes and all sorts of things, but it wasn't until my second year of college that I realized this sort of stuff is not going to come in handy with day-to-day IT stuff. That's when I started learning the certs. That's when I found your channel. Year later, I had all the CompTIA certs, and I actually take my CCNA exam tomorrow.
Good for you. A lot of the research I was doing when I first started talking about those things was in Orlando, because I had a son who wanted to move to Orlando and take those and get that cloud computing, get that technical degree. And so I went to all of the college, the 4-year colleges, the state schools that are in the area. There's a lot of great, not only state schools, but private universities in the Orlando area, fantastic universities that have years of experience of getting people educated, and not a lot of IT. Plenty of knowledge in calculus, plenty of knowledge in chemistry, but not a lot of IT, unfortunately. And he ended up going to a private school in Orlando to get that IT piece, because I kind of sort of pushed him in that direction. I sort of directed him. Didn't really have to push. He jumped right in, but directed him in that position because I saw all of these employers in Orlando asking for skills that the 4-year colleges weren't providing. And I thought, if there's anything I'm good at finding, are those gaps. And so there's a gap that somebody needs to fill, and hopefully he's going to be able to fill that. I like that you were able to combine those two things together and get not only the 4-year piece of it started and underway, but also have a focus on the certification side of things. It's a good 1-2 punch, and I think it's a good way to come out of your college experience, is with also having some certs in your pocket as well.
Absolutely. Once again, it's a pleasure talking to you, because you really helped me during those times, because I didn't know the process of getting the certs, but then I saw the videos on your channel where it was like A+, Net+, Sec+, and I was like, okay, what do I do once I have these? And then I did my own research, and it all just led one to another. And, I started looking at courses for the CCNA, and I've had a lot of success with online courses, and especially yours. So I'm very thankful for that.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on those. Yes, absolutely. Keep looking forward. Keep looking at more. What's next? What is the next thing you're able to accomplish? What's the next thing you can break down? Pull down the next cert, put it in your pocket. It's an ongoing process. Employers are needing people now more than ever that are knowledgeable on the IT side. And you're in a great geography with tons of options, many different employers in your area. And you're already seeing what's going on with the growth down in Lake Nona and other places where they're just building these enormous buildings that are putting big old companies inside of them. And they need smart IT people to be able to keep those running. So congratulations, Michael.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. And I'd like to say that, especially with the military contractors in this area, if somebody's interested in working in that industry, they're There are so many here, and they're great jobs with good security, and they're especially hiring for IT, especially cybersecurity. That's the big thing they're looking for.
Fantastic. I think it's a great location. I don't want to encourage everybody in the country to move to Orlando, but you really should. It's really a great place to be.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the call, Michael. Best of luck. Keep us updated with your quest and how everything goes with finding that job.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show.
Appreciate it. That's always a good plan, to step into getting the degree, to go to the next step after that, to combine that with the certifications. It's a great 1-2 punch. As I mentioned in the video, and there's a link in the video description on YouTube for this study group, how to get a job in IT with no experience. My first 2 elements, there's 4 elements I tell you need. The first 2 elements are a formal degree, 2-year or 4-year, and certifications. And as I mentioned, they don't replace each other. One isn't better than the other. They work together. The other pieces are practical experience. The other 2 elements, practical experience, being able to make that happen. There are some ways to get practical experience without actually having a job. And I talk about that in the video, things you can do to get some practical experience. And then the last one, we really didn't talk about that with Michael, but there were some, the last thing that I always tell people is to start networking with others in your area, not computer networking, people networking. So make sure your LinkedIn has been created. It might even be a very sparse LinkedIn. Everybody starts with an empty LinkedIn. So create your empty LinkedIn, start putting things in it. Start putting connections in it with people you know. Go to your local user group meetings or participate online with your local user group meetings. Go to a Microsoft user group meeting. Go to a Cisco user group meeting. Go to just a generic IT user group meeting. Meet the people that are there and say, it's great to meet you here. Can I add you to my LinkedIn? Can I send you a LinkedIn request so we can keep track of each other? Because knowing people who work in these companies can help you when you're trying to get a job in those companies. And very often, handing over your resume to someone who works in that company would allow them to give that resume to their HR team. And if you get hired, they get a finder's fee. So very often when you tell someone, I love the company you work for, do they have a hiring program? If I give you my resume, can you pass it on to the HR department and get registered with that so that if a job happens to come up, you can get paid on it? That's a win-win, I think, for most folks. So those are your 4 elements of getting a job in IT with no experience, which are formal degree, certifications, practical experience, knowing someone who already works there. So that's the key. That I think probably that last element I even mentioned in the video, we don't talk about enough. Knowing somebody who works in a company can be very, very compelling for a hiring manager. And it doesn't have to be a close friend. It's a professional acquaintance is all you really need. One of the things that I mention is that through my IT career, I probably had about 12 to 15 jobs, separate titles. Sometimes I'm sitting in the same desk and I get a new title when the year starts. So I got a promotion or they changed my role or whatever it is, and I just sat in one company and got 4 new titles. I'm counting those as 4 separate jobs. So in IT, through the years, I had about 12 to 15 jobs over about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 companies, maybe 6 companies. It depends on how you count them. It depends on how that worked out. It depends on how I would like to remember it. But with the very first job I got was a field service technician job. And that field service job I got with no knowledge of anybody who worked there. It was a little small storefront in South Miami. And I got a job working there, thankfully. Did they just need a warm body? I guess so. But they hired me out of college with a degree. And really no practical. I had some experience working in a computing center with mainframes and supercomputers and a little bit of IT from a state office I worked in. So before I got that job, I'd already had 2 or 3 jobs in IT, I guess you could say. But when I got that job, I started meeting a lot of people because I got to be that field service person. I went to some of the biggest companies in the area. I would repair their computers, install new equipment, replace something that was under warranty, whatever it was. And I would do that with all these big companies, and I'd start meeting folks. Now, when it came time for me to move out of the field service, I got tired of fighting the traffic on I-95 and the Dolphin. So I wanted to move into a more of a desk job. And so I started talking to the people I already knew. And in every job I got after that in IT, in the remaining 11 jobs that I had from that day forward, I always knew somebody who worked there. And it always had an advantage when it came time to choosing who needed to go work there. And no better example of that than the last position I got was with a next generation firewall company that nobody ever heard of. They were a startup company. Next generation firewalls didn't exist yet in the industry. And someone I'd worked with years ago started working there as a salesperson and said, "You would be really good for this. Why don't you talk to this person and get an interview? I already told them about you. You need to go in and talk to this company." And I did. And because I had such a close working relationship with someone they were already hiring, they took a chance on me, having never met me before. They took a chance on me and hired me. I was the 95th employee of this startup company, and that now has gone public, and that is Palo Alto Networks, now hires thousands of people around the world. So that's one of those situations where you never know, knowing someone through your career, how that can have an effect on your jobs and career and what you do for yourself and your family. This is why I always tell people, keep your LinkedIn always up to date. Always ask people, can I add you to my LinkedIn? And then you may want to start posting some things on LinkedIn. Start adding some of the practical things, knowledge and experience you're using for your home lab. Start putting that on LinkedIn too, so that other people know that you know this. Because I guarantee you, an employer who wants to hire you is going to go back and look at your LinkedIn. And if they look at your LinkedIn and say, wow, this guy's already installed this firewall at home. He's got reports that he wrote. Look at the information he's seeing coming in from the internet side. Look at what the firewall's blocking. Look at the applications he identified running through his network. Those are things that an employer will look at and go, okay, that's valuable. We need someone like that working for us. And you just never know where these things go. It's remarkable where the things can happen through your career that you would never have seen had you not known someone who already worked there. I can't emphasize it enough. In the chat room, Rodney with the $9.99 super chat. Thank you for that contribution. Rodney writes, love your videos. My dream is to work in a tech role where I'm able to travel the world. You're talking to the right person. What kind of role or position would I have to be in to travel? Well, I can give you a perspective of the way it worked for me, and then you can decide if it's a way to work for you as well. I have worked in both technical roles and technical marketing roles that have allowed me to travel internationally. And in the United States, it's kind of a big deal. You travel from Florida to California, you're almost traveling internationally. But going outside the country, you got a passport. So now you're going to really some extreme locations like Ottawa. You're really going out there. Or in my case, going to Europe and going to Asia and going to Australia and going to Canada and other parts of the world are things that happened all the time. I would get a call saying, okay, next week you need to be in Australia for a trade show. The role that I had to do that, there were two different roles that allowed me to do this. One was systems engineer, someone who was very highly technical, and in my particular case, had a knowledge about a specific product, a very deep, detailed, highly technical knowledge about a product. I was able to, that point I was working as a systems engineer for a network visibility and network management company. And so being able to go to a company, connect up technology, do reporting, metrics, being able to get key performance indicators, being able to really create a big set of analytics for an organization with the products that we offered. So I was one of the few people that could really take it from this very beginning to the very end, be able to produce a result that the customer was expecting, and then finish up effectively. It was professional services. So anything dealing with technical level professional services really means you're going to be traveling. And in my particular case, I traveled. That particular one was 2 weeks in Scotland during the holidays. It was amazing. So couldn't beat that. And that was a type of job that really took you to a lot of different places. The other position that allowed me to travel internationally was one that was sort of technical, but it was really a marketing position where I was talking to other people about the technology we had. And very often the people I was talking to was press and analysts, sometimes in the United States, sometimes in another country, or it may be presenting at a large trade show. These trade shows, back when we used to go places, these trade shows were all over the place, and there would be one every month. So you would be in Las Vegas one month, you would be in London another month, you would be in Japan another month, and you'd be speaking at a trade show. They need someone to come in who really understood what was going on in the industry, how this product solved particular problems, and could tell a story about how to take these challenges people were having and find a solution for those challenges. That particular job required a little more polish. So I went to specific training on how to talk to people. It was a presentation training that was from a company called Decker Training, where you would stand in front of a camera and you would give a presentation. And then they would bring you back and they would take you through every part of the presentation and tell you how awful you were, which is great. You become very, very hardened. You have a skin made of bark when you were done, because they were just breaking down everything you were doing wrong. What was nice, though, is they were also showing you everything you were doing right and changing the bad habits you had to be able to present in a way that was a little more palatable for people. Even to the point, the very first thing we did in those meetings, by the way, that training, is you stood in front of a group of people. Just stand there. And you stood there without saying anything for a minute. How do you stand there? What do you do when you're standing there? Where do you put your hands? Do you have your hands, are they clasped? And we went through the whole thing. And do you feel uncomfortable? Yes. But what do you do so that you don't look uncomfortable? It's little things like that. And that particular job worked itself into me just being on a plane and going to different places. Now, I have more than 1 million miles on Delta and more than 1 million miles on every other airline combined. So a couple million air miles under my belt. And at some point, you get tired of flying around the world. So fortunately, this one allows me to visit with people around the world without actually getting on a plane. So I kind of like this one, as it turns out, a little bit better, or it's different. I wouldn't say it's better, but it's different doing it this way. I still have to go out to those other countries to do other things occasionally, but it's for me and not for a third party. It's kind of interesting how all of these things work out. So systems engineering, sales engineering, field service, professional services, those are the types of roles that will get you traveling places. I love traveling. I loved getting on a plane. I loved going to a different place, something different every day, something unique. It was a lot of fun. I worked with some great people. Just depends on what you want to do. There's lots of IT jobs that allow you to do that. There's lots of IT jobs that allow you to sit in a chair and do this kind of thing all day. Just depends on what you're looking for. Hopefully it helps you, Rodney, and I appreciate your super chat. And it's really up to you. The jobs are out there. Go look for them. Go find them. See what type of skill sets they want you to have, and then go after them. Never a dull moment, I assure you. Back to phone lines. Let's go to the 315 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey there, my name's Jerome, and I'm calling. Well, I'm in Texas right now, here for work, but I'm originally from Framingham, Massachusetts.
Hey, Jerome, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yeah, well, Professor, honestly, I just want to start out by saying thank you so much for all the effort that you put into making those videos. And it's a lot of information, but it's so great. It helped me pass my A+ and my Network Plus recently.
Oh, great.
Now I'm studying for my Security Plus, and I saw that you were live, so I was like, oh, let me jump on this. Maybe I can get on the phone line. And, I want to get to my question right away, but I kind of want to just tell my backstory a little bit to kind of educate anybody else who's listening and help motivate them or maybe inspire them. So I have a background in automotive technology. I went to a technical high school, and I did that. And then I went to a 2-year college for that. And I didn't graduate at the time. I was just not really mature enough and not focused in college. I kind of just decided I didn't want to really waste money on it. So I dropped out. But I did get a job at a dealership, and eventually I made the move over to a white-collar setting where I was a field technician for a telematics company that was installing GPS units inside vehicles.
Okay.
And in that, I kind of got a little bit of experience with software and computers and communicating remotely and stuff like that. And fast forward, I got a field technician job with this wonderful company called Deployed Resources. And what they do is they provide life support facilities for government entities. So we, bid for the contracts, we get it, and then we come out, we build the place, and we do a number of things while we're here. But one of the things that we do is network infrastructure. And so check this out. With my background in automotive technology, my best friend got me the job. So like you were saying with the networking, it really is important because I would have never seen that coming.
Right.
And early in 2020, when quarantine was happening, they weren't calling us out for the jobs. And 2020 was the roughest year of my life financially. I had to move out of my place. I lost 6 months worth of savings.
Wow.
And it kind of makes me teary-eyed just talking about it because it was absolutely brutal. And in that time, I noticed that my savings was dwindling, and I was like, I've got to pivot. And so I had some friends who were in information technology, and my neighbor was a programmer. And out of my 4 friends, none of them lost their jobs or anything. They were able to work remotely during quarantine. So I was like, you know what? From automotive technology, I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna start doing that. So I enrolled in some classes online, and now I'm in my maybe 14 months into my cybersecurity program. I'm working on my associate's degree. Initially I didn't know anything about IT, and I saw that Google was offering a help desk certificate on Coursera.
Right.
So I did that. I found you online, and then I studied for the A+. I passed both the exams. Actually, my second exam was in March of this year. And then a couple weeks ago, I just passed my Networking Plus. And in that time that I was doing that, my job called me back again and was like, hey, we're calling all the field technicians and seeing who has IT experience. And I was like, well, I've never worked in IT, but I do have this Coursera certificate, and I'm working on an associate's degree in cybersecurity. And they were like, oh, that's fantastic. That's awesome. Here's the direction that the company's heading in, and yada, yada, yada. So I ended up getting sent out, and I was still doing field technician work, but I was getting some training on the side for the network infrastructure that was here. And fast forward 4 months, they offered me a IT role here to be an IT field technician on site and kind of be in charge of the video security system that's going on, the infrastructure with all the fiber and the Ethernet cables and subnetting networks out when we build up these sites and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's put me into, this is my first IT job. And at entry level, they're paying me 6 figures, and it's absolutely awesome. I'm so thankful for you because I wouldn't be here if I didn't have the knowledge that I essentially got from you. And so my question goes to this. I have a few more months before I finish up my program and get my associates in cybersecurity. And I know a little bit about CompTIA, but I don't know so much about the EC Council. But I know that they offer certificate programs, but also a bachelor's program for cybersecurity and a master's program. So my question to you is, I'm just looking for feedback. Could you just kind of educate me about them and what you would think if you were hiring for a company and you saw somebody that had a bachelor's from the EC Council and kind of had some CompTIA certificates and, just kind of, I'm just looking for feedback. Is that really, do you think is it worth spending the money to go and get my bachelor's and then perhaps my master's in the future in that? Because I know that the company is going to end up heading in the cybersecurity direction in the near future. And I kind of want to look good on paper because I know that my skills and how I am with networking and working with people, I'm great at building relationships and being a leader. but I also want to look good on paper because I would like a leadership role when the company goes in that direction. So what do you think about the EC Council and that program? Are you familiar with it? I'm just looking for some feedback, Professor.
I would say the feedback I can give you regarding EC Council is that in the industry, they are it's probably one of the most different range of responses that you will get from people is regarding EC Council. This is the organization, for those that have followed this, that have the Certified Ethical Hacker certification along with other certifications they offer. They are well supported by the U.S. federal government. They are one of the major certificates and series of certificates that the U.S. federal government recognizes. They are well known in the industry, but they are both well known for good things in the industry and well known for things that are perhaps not so good in the industry. I often have mentioned on my study groups before, people have asked me, I've wanted to get a CEH. Are you going to do videos for CEH? And I've always said, although I like the content associated with things like the Certified Ethical Hacker certification, I personally would never take that certification. Therefore, I really would not create a training course for that certification, primarily because of things that have happened in the past. EC Council has not had fantastic security in their organization. They've been hacked a number of times. Probably the most visible is one that had their homepage replaced with Edward Snowden's passport picture, because you have to give your picture ID to them to be able to take their tests. Well, it turns out the hackers got access to those and then spread the pictures and other content around the internet. Those things happen to a lot of companies, though. It's not like that's specific, that CEH is the only company out there that's ever had a security issue, and I recognize that. There's also, from a business perspective, there's other things where I've had interactions, sort of second level interactions with EC Council that were not to my comfort level. So it's not an organization that I particularly personally want to have a relationship with. Although many people have taken their certifications, used those certifications to get a job because employers want you to have the CEH certification. They look upon that certification as something valuable. So it's a very polarized organization from the perspective of both technologists and for people who are hiring. They are not quite the crystal clear answer that I could hope to give you regarding EC Council, but the potential is there. You just kind of have to work through what the advantages and disadvantages would be for you to go out and earn those certifications. And I would think at this point that they've kind of locked down their infrastructure a little better than it used to be. They probably learned very well for going through the problems that they had that were well in the past. These were problems that were in the one that I mentioned to you was many years ago. But it's one that throughout the industry, you do seem to see people talking either very positively about EC Council or very negatively about EC Council. And very rarely is there sort of a middle ground between the two. So find out what employers in your area are interested in. You may find that every employer in your area would love for you to have the CEH and put it in your pocket and be able to walk around with that. If that's the case, well, that's the one you should go get. That's pretty obvious. Or you may find that it's not quite as popular as you might think it is. And so maybe it isn't quite worth the time and effort to do it. It sounds like you're working on the right things at the right time to put you in the right position, though. So you've already seemed to have a pretty good feel for, except for that little gap where we all had challenges keeping up and making sure that revenue was coming in, that we could pay our bills, and that we all had a worry there for a number of months during that time frame. We're all figuring it out at this point, and you seem to have a pretty good idea of what people are looking for. I say follow whatever it is you've been doing. Keep doing that same thing. Go do the same type of studies, figure out what employers are looking for, find the right connection and the right match for those, and you won't go wrong, whether it's EC Council or anyone else.
Yeah, I agree. I find myself in a unique situation where things are kind of changing and nothing's set in stone yet for the future. But it seems like every week there's new news, or I hear ideas from my boss about where he wants to take things. So it's kind of nice that I still have some time to figure that out. Thank you so much for the information. And again, thank you so much for your videos. For everybody listening, find the time and just study. Watch all the material. I know it's a lot. Take the practice test. Just keep going and make sure that you network, because you never know. Things can turn around. For me, 2020 was absolutely brutal. But instead of, just sitting around like a lot of people did and not improving myself, I decided to buckle down and work on some certificates. And when that call came along, and that part was luck, but when that call came around, I was ready. I put myself in a situation. I knew that IT was going to be something that I was going to go into, and I set myself up for success. So even if there's no opportunities and things seem kind of grim, just keep studying. Please buckle down, because things will change as long as you put yourself in that situation. So thanks, Professor, and good luck, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jerome. I couldn't have said it any better than that. You had to live through it and be able to make those different difficult things happen. I don't think there's luck in those scenarios. It's sort of that old saying, I don't know exactly who said it, that you put yourself in a position so when those opportunities come around, they're a perfect fit for you. It's not really luck. I guess it's luck that the opportunity even came around, but you were ready to go when that happened. And I see that a lot of people were doing a similar thing that Jerome was doing as well. During the time when we had kind of a downtime, that we were all sort of, what happens next? What are we doing next with this? I saw a lot of people coming to my site and saying, well, I was doing this. Now I see everybody in IT is still working. I want to do that. And applying yourself and getting those certs and putting them in your pocket, as I've always said to people over and over and over, and now perhaps even more so, get the certification now. People always say, well, yeah, but there's a new Network Plus coming out next month. Well, you could be already studying for a month and take the exam and have the Network Plus cert before that one really even gets going. Why aren't you putting the certification in your pocket today? Because when that comes around and somebody calls and says, hey, you know what? We're doing a lot with networking, or we're doing a lot with security, or we're doing a lot with whatever it happens to be. And you can tell them, oh, I have that certification already. I've got the Network Plus already. It's in my pocket. And they go, oh, well, you need to come work for us then. That may be it. That was a really good example of how it works in practical terms. Just as Jerome got that call from people he knew saying, here's what we're trying to do. What can you bring to the table? I was put into exactly the same position where I got a call out of the blue from somebody I hadn't worked with in years who said, there's this startup called Palo Alto Networks. I know you've never heard of them, but what they got is pretty darn cool. You should really look at this and consider coming to work here. Had he never called me, I would have never even gone down that road. And it literally changed what I did for a living. For 7 years, I worked there. It changed what I was able to do with my life. That's the level of changes that can occur in IT. People, I know we always talk about you get into IT and you get your A+ and you work on a help desk. And a lot of people don't see that there is so much beyond that. The help desk is just your entry level. It just gets you in the door. What's ahead of you is an enormous world of things you will be able to do that, by the way, you get to decide what you do. You get to make the decisions over where you work and how you work and with what technologies and what those things do, because there are jobs out there for everything and anywhere that you would want to work with whatever you want to do. You just have to be in the position to be lucky. Maybe that's how we look at it. I'm ready to be lucky now. So you just wait for that opportunity to come along, or go out and find that opportunity. Have someone call. That's another good reason to have a good LinkedIn. This person I worked with through the years who called me out of the blue years later and said, we worked together at a job, a few jobs ago, and hadn't heard from him, maybe sent some emails back and forth every now and then, hadn't heard from him. And just out of the blue, he called and said, I was thinking about you on this one. This one would be good. And we teamed up. It was an amazing combo. You can't see it, but above here, above my fireplace are a set of awards we got for selling the most in the company, for doing the most amount of the year that we were able to do. We were able to really do amazing things and had a lot of fun doing it. Those jobs are out there, and they're really just waiting for you to be knowledgeable enough to step into those roles. This is what gets you there. So keep working. If you're working on your Network Plus, keep working on that Network Plus. If you're trying to get Security Plus or any third-party certification, keep doing what you're doing. Never stop working on those things. Get yourself ready for that moment when somebody says, we need somebody with this skill set. And as Jerome mentioned, they're willing to pay you a lot of money for that level of knowledge. Go get those jobs. They're out there and ready for you. Well, that brings us to the end of another study group. Can you believe we went through all of that Network Plus content and sat on the phones for a few hours? Usually these after shows just go on and on and on. You let me drone on so long, and I sure appreciate it. We couldn't do this without you being here, though. Thank you so much for joining us on the study group. Thank you for your time you spent on the Q&A that we did earlier in that first hour. Those are always fun. I'm putting together the Q&A for next week. So if you like the one that we did today, come back next week. We're doing a Security Plus study group where it's all Security Plus questions from the new SY0601. Just great stuff to go through. And we always have a good time doing it and always have a good time on the after show. But we couldn't do it without you. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching the replays. Thanks for the comments you send. If you ever want to stop by the Discord chat, it's always available, professormesser.com/Discord. Myself and many other people are in there all the time, answering questions, seeing what's going on. We always like to keep the conversation going. Thanks for being here. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Thanks, everyone.